Trump denied the allegations and said he has no idea who Carol is. His attorneys plan to appeal the verdict. CBS's Sarah Ewald-Weiss tells us new economic numbers out today tell the story of stubborn inflation.
Consumer prices were up 0.4% last month, an acceleration from 0.1% seen in March. Prices were up 4.9% from a year ago, a continual easing from the year-over-year increases seen last year. Food prices were unchanged in April, but housing costs continue to tick up and energy costs went up slightly after decreasing in March.
The Biden administration will begin denying asylum to migrants who enter the country without first seeking protection in another country. And it plans to open more hubs to deal with migrants, with more expected now that pandemic restrictions under Title 42 are about to expire. CBS's Manuel Bojorquez with more from the border.
The crackdown in downtown El Paso has already begun. Law enforcement and city officials have been clearing out street encampments.
I can't go back to where I came from because I could kill my son.
Gregorio Felipe fled Guatemala with his 5-year-old son Isidro. He said he was being extorted and was told if he didn't pay the money, they would kill him and his son. He had to leave his 3 other kids and wife behind. Officials who are already struggling to house migrants in shelters are dealing with an influx of uncertainty.
And checking Wall Street, the Dow is down 96 points. The S&P and NASDAQ are higher. This is CBS News.
Find your next great hire with Indeed. Their hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates.
WAUK 540 AM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair. Here's what you need to know. 4 people were hurt after an apparent explosion at the Windsor condominium complex on Madison's west side Tuesday evening. Fire Chief Chris Carvin says one of the units in the building is believed to be the origin of the blast. Carvin says at least 6 units were affected. The entire building is now uninhabitable. 22-year-old Krista Marie Welch has been missing from Polk County since May 7th. She left the area in an unknown vehicle after getting a call saying her niece was injured and in the hospital. Police say her niece was not hurt. Welch has ties to the Green Bay area and also in Maine. Since leaving, she's had no contact with her family or friends, and her phone is off. Welch is also believed to be no longer taking her mental health-related medications. If you've seen Krista Marie Welch or know where she is, please contact local law enforcement. I'm Jane Matnair. This is Civic Media News.
Man, this house is in need of a few upgrades. Windows, doors, even the basement needs a little TLC. With the Inflation Reduction Act, you can have all these assessed and addressed. It's there for you. Doesn't matter the age or condition. Call Green Homeowners United, the only woman-owned, union-affiliated residential energy efficiency firm in Milwaukee County. They'll take you through the journey of getting an energy-efficient and beautiful home. Claim all your discounts. Call 414-604-6450. That's 414-604-6450.
A progressive voice from Manitowoc to Janesville. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
If you love to spend time in the kitchen, elevate your cooking game with a pantry full of premium hemp products from Mary Jane's Hemp Shop in Waukesha. Mary Jane sells flights of Himalayan sea salts, raw sugar flights, local raw honey, and just in time for summer, a variety of salt rubs for meat and grilling. Not sure how to use the products in your own kitchen? Check out Mary Jane's YouTube channel for ideas and recipes. Elevate your cooking game at Mary Jane's Hemp Shop, 335 West Main Street, Waukesha, or online at maryjanespantry.shop.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love Party Packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Butler to Wind Lake. Always streaming at WAUK.
It's great to be here to speak directly to the woke mob.
The liberals have basically made up this whole agenda that guacamole is made of avocados. It's not the truth. So it goes, so it goes, so it goes, so it goes.
Ticked off, tee off. This is it.
Scooby boo boo. Scooby doo.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Oh, Wisconsin!
Where do you get your news from? What media outlets do you trust? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. Where do you get your news? Obviously, if you're listening to this show, maybe you get it from here. Maybe
We would like that.
We would like that, but maybe you get it from other shows on Civic Media. Oh, we already have a comment. Joe McClear.
Oh, we love Joe.
No, Greg.
No,
He
Greg.
said
today.
No, Greg.
No, Greg. Today.
There is indeed. It is Hump Day Wednesday, but it is no Greg Bach Wednesday. Greg is feeling a little under the weather, so he didn't want to hack into your eardrum from
And
a
we
cough.
appreciate that.
And we appreciate that for our own sake as well. But we love Greg, and he will be back next week. But get that out of the way, I guess. Yes, because it is Wednesday. Thanks for noticing, Joe. But no. So where do you get your news from? And I'm asking this because there is a new poll out that maybe isn't surprising, but at least there's data to back it up that says Americans don't agree on what news to trust. Democrats and Republicans disagree on which news sources are trustworthy, according to the latest YouGov poll. And it just got me thinking of, for people who listen to this show, where do you get your news?
Maybe it's only online. Maybe you only, if it's Washington Post or JS or Cap Times, or maybe that's where you get it from.
Yeah. And is it more radio versus TV versus written word? So online, like Substacks and the newspapers that are online. Maybe you still get an actual newspaper. But I'm just curious as far as, it's interesting to hear people say they don't trust the news, but I think there's still a fair amount of news consumption. And so trying to hear from you on who do you trust? Why do you trust them? Because I'm trying to think, I feel like I don't know if I trust. I think I watch any cable news. Not that I watch a lot of cable news anyways, with the skepticism.
Yeah.
But I definitely trust Journal Sentinel. I mean, and I also, I have the advantage that I get to see that some of the journalism happening there up front and the thoroughness and that they take before they publish. But I'm so interested. Do you have?
I watch a lot of MSNBC.
You do? Okay.
I haven't watched CNN for a long time.
Me either.
I do watch local news. I watch Channel 12. I'm an old person, so I watch my news from 5 to 6, like old people always did, and my parents did. 844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Where do you get your news from? Tom from Nakusa joining us. Hey, Tom, where do you get your news?
Almost exclusively from the Young Turks.
Oh, wow.
I'm familiar with them too, Tom.
What do you like about the Young Turks?
I feel I'm getting all the news and I'm not getting lied to, and nobody's giving me a snow job, and it's not corporate owned.
So how would you, for people who are unfamiliar with Young Turks, how would you describe them to someone?
They're honest, and they do an excellent job, and they don't leave anything out. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
They'll give you their honest opinion.
And so do you typically watch it on your computer on YouTube then? Because they're still only on YouTube, correct?
No, they've got different platforms. They got there's a few different platforms, but yes, that's where I mainly watch them, is on YouTube. But they're on Facebook also, and I think Pluto they were on for a while, and
nice. All right.
There's a number of places.
Anything else? Any mainstream channels? Any local newspapers? Where do you get your Wisconsin news from?
Well, you.
Oh, well, thank you.
I listen to you just about every day. I'm out working out in my shed.
Oh, well, we appreciate that.
We really appreciate that, Tom.
And I'm not so sure about your opinion in the Milwaukee Journal. I worked there for
you did
about 18 years, not in the newsroom, in production. But
okay.
I heard things, so
fair enough.
Well, thank you so much for checking in, Tom, and calling in and listening. We really, really appreciate it very much. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. Tom from West Dallas. Hey, Tom, where do you get your news?
Hi there. Mainly, like the Man with Young Turks, I watch them once in a while, that or the Midas Touch Network. I get my news through them. I also follow the Fifth Column, who takes on one subject, and he can take anywhere from 3.5 to 12 minutes to explaining exactly what's going on and how it relates to everything else. He's very good. I highly recommend him. That or Google News. I read a lot of news. Google, Huffington Post, Smart News. Once in a while, the Journal. But I don't. I used to buy the paper every day, but now I don't at all, just because it's easier. But those are basically my news sources.
Yeah. So is it
And
just?
you guys,
I
of
haven't
course.
heard of the Fifth Column before. Is that a podcast or what is the Fifth Column?
He's on YouTube. He does have a podcast too, I believe, is BEAU of the Fifth Column. He's from Florida, bearded guy, but he is really good at explaining different topics and what is going on. He doesn't. There was just a thing about the shooter down in Texas with the patch, and people wrote in and asked, "Why aren't you talking about the patch?" And he basically said, because I read this doesn't necessarily make it a fact yet. He goes, that patch, once the originators of that patch got called out and stuff, then the patch went online and anybody could buy it. So he goes, I don't know, and this was, a few days ago, but he said, I don't know yet if that patch is relevant to this or not. I don't like talking about things that I cannot verify.
Yeah, you got to respect that,
so
right?
I highly recommend him. He's really good. He has at least twice a day, 3 times a day, he comes out with a new topic and talks about it.
And it's really a luxury to have that amount of time to delve into something. You know what I mean? It
Right,
really is,
right.
because traditional newscasts, they've got 2 minutes, maybe 2
Oh,
minutes
yeah.
is as long as they spend on
Right.
anything.
And anything even like NPR. I do listen to NPR. I get some of my news there as well, but that always drives me nuts is when they're in a topic and it's like, okay, we're out of time. We got to go.
Well,
it's like, oh,
we
come
we run into that.
Oh, we
Sometimes
do.
the radio is the radio.
We do.
You're like, well, we gotta get to commercial because people paid for this. So thanks so much for the call,
Right,
Tom. Oh, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
I'm gonna keep writing these down. So I would actually, this is as fun to hear your thoughts as where you get your news and why you trust them and what about them you like. Because then I can also, this is an aggregate for me to grab
Check more
them and
news.
put them in today's show notes because
Exactly.
I had not heard. I'd heard of Midas Touch. I had heard of the Young Turks. That was one of the outlets that for a little while when I was still in LA, I was like, I wonder if I could try to figure out how to get a job with them because
You would have been good.
I would have been good. I don't know if I'm as
Anna Kasparian, if that's how you pronounce her name, is so good.
she's such. Did you ever watch the debate between? She went on Ben Shapiro's show. And it was a really great conversation.
Was it?
They were both super respectful and obviously two people who have very different views. But I would actually go back and rewatch that because she's so, she knows when to get angry and when she does use emotion, but she is largely so put together and eloquent and gets her point across very well. You may not always agree with her, but I would say, she is very,
She's
very
good.
talented.
She's good.
But we are asking the question, where do you get your news from? Because there's new polls out that not only do we, the left and the right, not agree on who they trust to get their news. So it kind of brings up the question of what is the truth? Since we don't have anymore the 3 main channels where that's what the news said. There is endless of and I think there's probably arguments to be made of the good and the bad, because I often think, even when I think about this show, when you have the responsibility of people getting information from you or getting their opinion from you, and you have X amount of space in the paper, you're putting out so many, and maybe on a blog or like an online outlet, there's not as much of a limit on how many pieces you can publish each day. But, or even, a TikTok video that's 60 seconds. You're like, what's the most important pieces to put into this 60 seconds to keep people's attention? Because I'm not going to do a half hour. You can't even do a half hour TikTok.
Right.
But all of it is, I feel like, as much of the trade-off of what do we cover and what do we not cover. It's not necessarily that the stories themselves and the people who are covering those stories are lying. It's what the choice comes to the editor or the publisher, or for us, largely Jane and I.
Yep.
What do we want to cover? What interests us? What do we want to talk about? What do we think is the most important? What is someone else not talking about? And so it's the decision of when there is so much to cover, what you do and you don't, that I think ultimately becomes the differentiator between a lot of these outlets. Because we've talked about many times, Fox is covering some news. They're just not covering Trump news, like yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday was kind of a big day for the former president.
Yeah. It's so I think that is also the kind of topics that each outlet chooses to talk about. But we would love to hear from you. Where do you get your news from? Who do you trust and why? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. You can call us. You can text us. If you are watching the live stream on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter at As Goes Wisconsin, you can leave us a comment there. Ben Zimmerman will come back with his thoughts when we come back. But this is As Goes Wisconsin, and we're talking about media.
We're rolling out the red carpet for all area musicians to be a part of Hoozles at the Lake's Rise to Music competition this summer. If you're an artist and you believe you have real talent to share, you're invited to check out competition details. Then sign up for the second annual Rise to Music at hoozlesrisetomusic.com. Registration is open now. Brought to you by Hoozles at the Lakes, your local civic media radio station, Wiscountry 105.5 WIRI and Max Inc. Radio.
Are you an experienced industrial painter, drywall finisher, or want to be? Do you want more than a job, but a high-paying career where your interests are well represented, ensuring a safe work environment? The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades of District Council 7 wants you. Bring your knowledge or ask about paid training. Learn more now. Call Tom Coyne, 262-488-4839, 262-488-4839, or go to the union's website, iupatdc7.com.
Up North News Radio is Wisconsin's new choice for progressive talk about important state issues, from the team that brings you the news through social media, newsletters, and here on the radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Join me weekday mornings from 6 to 8 a.m.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Lots of sunshine this afternoon with highs around 75. Winds out of the south 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear skies tonight, lows around 51, highs around 77 tomorrow. Turning cooler Friday and Saturday with highs in the upper 60s. Scattered showers possible both days. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
read, listen, watch, share. We're talking about who do you trust when it comes to getting your news, and also that for both national news, local news, world news, maybe it's different for each one because local news is important to know what's going on in Wisconsin, and would love to hear where I know where I get my local news is typically Journal Sentinel, WPR, Cap Times, Wisconsin State Journal. But would love to know if there's other local outlets that you really trust as far as where you think good information comes from. But we're talking about this because according to the results of a new YouGov poll released this week, their April survey shows extreme polarization in how much folks trust, how much people put trust into 45 different news outlets. So according to the survey, probably not a big shock, CNN and MSNBC are the most divisive. A much larger share of Democrats than Republicans think they're in the business of telling the truth. But winning, I thought was interesting, but winning over Democrats might be easier. The survey shows Democrats are more likely to trust most media outlets than Republicans. They're even more likely than Republicans to have faith in the conservative-leaning New York Post.
Wow, the New York Post?
The New York Post, because I certainly get headlines for the New York Post, and I always have a side eye of like, all right, let me dig into this a little bit deeper.
That's where I go for all my salacious, unfounded celebrity gossip. It's like the Daily Mail in England.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, I kind of believe that. I feel like I have someone in my life who very much does not trust the mainstream media and is constantly sending me things that I feel like when I dig through a little bit deeper, I'm like, well, this isn't founded either. But there's something about, and I think I get both sides of the argument. On the one side of, and we talked about this with John Russell a little bit, that there are some big news outlets that are owned by like private equity firms. And so when you look at who owns the actual outlet, and if it is not independent, it's
profit driven.
It's profit driven, but it's also how do we cover, what angle do we take to cover this story? Versus, there's a ton of Substack independent journalists now. There's a lot of YouTubers, as we said, and people who are doing independent fact checking. But, the trade-off there is like at a big outlet, there are tons of editors, there's tons of fact checking, there's a huge team to verify what gets printed out because they're liable, obviously, if something goes wrong. Versus like an independent or one-man show, they do their best, but there's also not necessarily someone who's checking their work. And so I think that a range would be good, but I can kind of see why I see the skepticism on both sides. But there is a part of me when this person in my life who sends me kind of tweets, and I'm like, well, I feel like if this was true, there's enough really hungry journalists out there who would love to break this story. And so the fact that no one else is really talking about this makes me think that I'm going to wait before I react. And so that is how I feel about some of the tweets and whether or not you can trust everything you read on the Bird app.
Yeah, you got to be careful there too. 844-967-2789. Texture from the 414. Perhaps one of the best news sources, in my opinion, is John Oliver. He is thorough, takes the time to explain, gives sources, and is funny as hell.
My hero.
He is so good.
John,
is so good.
That show, I mean, Jon Stewart is still
the gold.
Not the gold. He's just such a good interviewer. But the research that goes into Last Week Tonight and the rabbit holes they find and how they condense it into, because the show itself is only 30 minutes and they rarely ever do just the whole show. They do like a first segment and then they do the bigger segment in the like 2/3 to 3/4. But how much they condense in such a short period of time and how he basically doesn't take a breath and doesn't trip up
it's astonishing.
It's a masterclass.
Yeah, it truly is. Another text from the 920. John from Oshkosh. Only cable news is CNN. I watch that with a grain of salt. Local news radio, of course, civic media. Online media like Young Turks, David Packman, Midas Touch are all good. I mostly look at the world around me, observe what people say and their actions, and form my own opinion. Common sense is a lost art.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
We love it.
It's important. We do have a call.
Great.
844-967-2789. CJ from Stoughton. What do you watch?
Well, thank you for taking my call. I watch the #1 news network. There's a difference between personalities and journalists, and that would be Brett Baer Special Report. He has both sides of the issue on every panel. We saw an example of who covers the news. You know who didn't show up for proof that the Biden family has taken millions today, that the Congressman Comer explained? You know what? Surprisingly, MSNBC, CNN never showed today. What a shock. So you continue to look down that road for your news, and you're not getting it because there's proof this president is corrupt, and your networks didn't even show up. What a shock.
CJ, can I also ask, how much civic media do you listen to?
You hear me call in.
I know, that's what I'm this is a genuine question because I feel like you listen to a lot.
All day and all night. All day, all night.
Well,
so, yeah, I'm the truth detector for Civic Radio.
All right,
got it.
I haven't heard one word about what happened today with our current president.
Okay, CJ, we really are running up against the clock, and I do appreciate you calling, and I do appreciate you not yelling.
Thank you, CJ.
Yes,
all
thank
right.
you, CJ.
Well, we're going to keep this conversation rolling because we haven't even gotten to all of our texts and our comments yet. So where do you get your news? Why do you trust them? Give us a call, 844-967-2789.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
CBS News special report. New York Republican Congressman George Santos indicted and arrested on federal charges that include wire fraud, money laundering, and lying to Congress.
The transfer of money from Company A that looks like, based on the indictment here, is alleged to be just a fraudulent company and goes into Santos's bank account so he can use it for personal expenses.
Legal analyst Jessica Levinson says Santos is accused of embezzling money from his own election campaign.
I think that it is possible that we could see a plea deal where we could see, obviously, he decides that he doesn't want to go to trial. The federal government, again, lots of documents just listed in the indictment. And he says, I will agree to less time in federal prison and I will plead guilty to X, Y, and Z.
Since taking office, Santos has rebuffed calls for his resignation over lying about his past. CBS News special report. I'm Steve Kathan.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. 2023 is the deadliest year for law enforcement officers in Wisconsin in 20 years. St. Croix County Sheriff Scott Knutson was Deputy Katie Lysing's boss. She's the 4th law enforcement officer killed in Wisconsin so far this year.
We need good cops. We're killing the good cops. And it's frustrating.
Lysing was shot and killed at a traffic stop last Saturday. Milwaukee County leaders are striking out a local buy-in to help maintain American Family Field. The idea was voted down in committee Monday. Republican state lawmakers want Milwaukee and Milwaukee County to pay at least part of the $300 million to keep the stadium maintained. In sports, the Dodgers beat the Brewers last night 6-2. The rubber match of the series is today. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love Party Packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
Images are everywhere, on iPads, cell phones, or the cloud. In fact, everywhere but where you can find them. Mike Crivello Camera and Imaging Center has the solution to this problem. They're called pictures, and we print them right from our website. And you order them online at MikeCrivellos.com. And they look magnificent in your photo album.
Mike Crivello's world is a wonderful world of camera.
It's not a picture till it's printed. 181st and Blue Mound.
The 4 most dreaded words. My computer is down. Oh boy, that bites. Remain sane. PC and Bat together will fix the pain. Rated #1 PC doctor in Southeast Wisconsin. Great service, great rates, and fast service with no trip charge. Experts with PCs, laptops, network servers, protection, backups, and can even help you remotely. Click PCandBat.com or call us at 262-706-3235. That's 262-706-3235. Remain sane. We fix the pain.
You've got questions about navigating the healthcare system? Kristen Lyerly helps us find answers and discusses other issues at the intersection of healthcare and politics. Hometown Health, Thursday mornings at 7:30 on Up North News Radio.
The trust nothing era. We're talking about where you get your news from and what do you trust? Because, there was a new poll that says that we're very divided on where we get our information from. But also, as of yesterday, there's 2 trends that are about to unfold basically in real time. So Mr. Tucker Carlson went to Twitter last night and said starting soon, he'll be bringing a new version of the show he's been doing on Fox News to the Bird app. And I think we have a little bit of a clip.
We do.
Yes.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. You often hear people say the news is full of lies, but most of the time that's not exactly right. Much of what you see on television or read the New York Times is in fact true in the literal sense. It could pass one of the media's own fact checks. Lawyers would be willing to sign off on it. In fact, they may have. But that doesn't make it true. It's not true. At the most basic level, the news you consume is a lie of the stealthiest and most insidious kind. Facts have been withheld on purpose, along with proportion and perspective. You are being manipulated. You can't have a free society if people aren't allowed to say what they think is true. Amazingly, as of tonight, there aren't many platforms left that allow free speech. The last big one remaining in the world, the only one, is Twitter, where we are now. Twitter has long served as the place where our national conversation incubates and develops. Twitter is not a partisan site. Everybody's allowed here, and we think that's a good thing. And yet, for the most part, the news that you see analyzed on Twitter comes from media organizations that are themselves thinly disguised propaganda outlets. You see it on cable news, you talk about it on Twitter. The result may feel like a debate, but actually the gatekeepers are still in charge. We think that's a bad system. We know exactly how it works, and we're sick of it. Starting soon, we'll be bringing a new version of the show we've been doing for the last 6.5 years to Twitter. We bring some other things too, which we'll tell you about. But for now, we're just grateful to be here. Free speech is the main right that you have. Without it, you have no others.
So
I have so many things.
So long as, because Tucker's also headed to a legal battle because he's claiming that Fox breached their contract first. So he is not in violation of breaching his contract by starting his own show on Twitter. But also, it looks like, and as we were just saying, the Young Turks, Midas Touch, David Pakman, there's these Steven Crowder on, there's a lot of people who have built a career as an independent show on social media. So it looks like that's what Tucker's gonna do next on Twitter. Now, Musk said he and Carlson have not signed a deal of any kind whatsoever.
Oh, so that was a premature announcement.
Well, Axios did have a scoop that they've been talking, but they don't actually have a deal yet. I think Elon tweeted out basically, we don't have an actual deal, but he is going to be held to the same rules and rewards of any other content creator on Twitter. Although it sounds like some of the rewards he might be able to get aren't actually like released as features yet. So we'll see. I mean, obviously he's going to bring a lot more people than I would if I started my show on Twitter. As much as I think that show would be great. I mean, technically we are on Twitter, but then also, generative AI is here, and the brains behind it have warned administration officials during a recent White House meeting of an imminent explosion of highly convincing and manipulative fake videos and stories in the run-up of the 2024 election. So think fake news on steroids.
Yeah. And can I just back up for a second? Going back to some of the things that Tucker said. He said, just because it's factual doesn't mean it's true. And that I should be able to state my opinion as fact. Well, my opinion is that I'm 5'11", 130 pounds with emerald green eyes and flaming red hair.
Is that what you always wanted?
Sure. That's my opinion. You can check the stream and see that is not a fact.
Yeah.
So equating opinion with fact is not accurate. And I also just want to remind folks that Tucker Carlson's own lawyers in court told the judge that anyone who listens to Tucker and thinks it's all the truth is an idiot. Essentially. They essentially said it's an opinion show, and I wouldn't believe him. You shouldn't believe him. His lawyers said that. Fox lawyers said that. You can look it up.
Yeah. Yes. And so, I think it's interesting that he'll be I also think it's interesting to see what the overlap between who was watching him on Fox every night will be, and how many of those people also get stuff from Twitter.
Well, do you think that's not the same audience?
I think there's probably some of the same audience,
but I don't think a majority of Fox viewers are on Twitter.
Yeah, I would say and not that he won't have a huge audience on Twitter too, but it could be different than the people who were tuning in every night to Fox. But both of these, similarly to what he said, basically trust no one but me. And then Elon yesterday also tweeted, trust nothing, not even nothing. And so it's just this, I don't know, it feels to a certain extent like a scare tactic of don't trust anyone except us. And so where are you left to, what do you instinctively trust? And that comes back to, I think, the conversation and the question we started the show with today is where do you get your news from and why do you trust them? And I also feel like in the YouGov poll found was that, I don't know, I tend to think that journalists it's hard to do the news.
Yes, it is.
It's hard to get all of the facts, especially when you're up against a deadline and stories are still unfolding. And like I said, the trade-off and the choices between what you run and what you don't run, the facts you include and what you don't include, discretion is a huge part of the news. And it's just an interesting, because it comes back to the idea that without the news, without, people actually out there getting the story, verifying it, we're kind of just all lost in the dark, right? Democracy dies in the dark.
Yes.
And do we not need some guiding light as far as this is, if it was here, we know that this is the base. These are at least the facts of the story that are irrefutable. Because without that, it gets.
Well, that's why I think this is so dangerous to say that I should be able to state my opinion as fact.
Yeah.
That is not accurate. We all have opinions.
But I think, it'd be interesting to take individual, because the YouGov poll that we started with was talking about different outlets. So they asked about 46 different outlets versus individuals. Because I think that would also be interesting of like, is there more than CNN, MSNBC, Fox, whatever? Is it a person on those channels? Is it a specific journalist that you follow? Is it the person that you trust over the outlet?
Interesting.
And I would wonder how often that is also the case of I trust Tucker, I trust Rachel Maddow, I trust Anderson Cooper, these people who are bigger, that are our personalities in news. I trust Anna Kasparian,
right?
Ben Shapiro, and like a lot of those people also put opinion into their shows. But it'd be interesting to see what data is available as far as people trusting people versus trusting the outlet, the source.
Sure.
But yeah, and so I don't know. It was interesting times ahead as far as, but it's also interesting the whole Twitter thing, because Twitter itself is likely to be, ground zero for the spread of AI generated like lies, right?
Yep.
Because it is a place where anyone can be, but their content moderation is constantly in flux. I think they are trying to do something as far as like site sources or something like that. Like I think they're, how are they actually going to fact check things? If they're going to be the place that you have to trust, are they going to at all? But, the mainstream media, which has studied up on misinformation over the last 2 elections, probably is going to be the best defense of like, how do you fact check Twitter? Like if you read something on Twitter from someone, where do you go then to be like, well, is this true?
Right.
Or is this just this person who paid for a blue check mark behind their name? That's what they're saying. But it's interesting. So let's go through some of these
comments on
the stream. Ben Zimmerman. Getting news from multiple sources is important to get the whole picture. Using critical thinking to connect the dots will always be necessary because things get cut for the time or column space. Totally true.
Absolutely.
Roger Foss says, I get my news from my local AM station, WPCN Stevens Point in the morning, WFHR from 11 to 4. Yay. And local CBS station, WSAW in the evenings. Travis says, PBS, NPR, Journal Sentinel, Up North News, YouTube, Midas Touch, Rational Nation. I haven't heard of that one.
Never
As
heard of that
goes, woo, Devil's Advocates, TikTok, Under the Desk. Under the Desk is great.
Good.
Members of the Villains Guild. I haven't heard of them.
I'm going to check it out just because I like the name.
Yeah.
And I want to be a member of the Villains Guild.
Marcus DiPaula. And Ben earlier had said, now this, As Goes Wisconsin and Civic Media, MSNBC, Spectrum News, AJ Plus, Military Times, BBC, The Young Turks, and more. So yeah, so there's, people are out there getting a variety of news, which is great.
If you want to check in, you can call and or text anytime, 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PATE.
So we'll quickly end this segment with, I guess, what was the biggest. We'll do the end of this segment with what probably was the biggest news yesterday. And then we'll do the next segment on what I don't know, arguably, to give CJ credit, I knew the Comer Oversight Committee was meeting today. I did not have time to watch any of it this morning. I don't know what's been unveiled. I haven't had time to read about it. We'll probably talk about that tomorrow. But the other breaking news I did hear is our friend George Santos is in a little bit of trouble.
Yes, George is in custody.
Georgie Porgy. So that should be interesting. So we'll cover that a little bit more in the next segment. But I just, Trump, former President Trump, found liable yesterday for sexual abuse. And the federal jury ruled that the former president more than likely sexually abused advice columnist E. Jean Carroll in Manhattan department store 3 decades ago. And so as a result of the verdict, he has to pay her $5 million in damages.
Yep.
Which, unknown how big of a hit that is for him. I don't know if any of us are really clear how much money he has or doesn't have at any given point. But But yeah, and so it's interesting. I haven't seen a ton of discourse as far as, does this help him? Does this hurt him? I would probably imagine the likely sources are taking their sides as far as how credible or not this is.
There were 4 other women that testified along with
Yeah.
Eugene Carroll. It's
Yeah.
not like it's my word against his word. It's his word against their word.
Yes. I do love that. I mean, I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. This verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
That's your first.
That's
Trump
my first Trump impression.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just.
Oh, can I just say, she's not his type. He identified her in the picture as
This
his
is
ex-wife,
ex-wife.
Marla Maples. So
I know.
that might have not been true.
But I want to, and now we have to go to a break, but it feels like bad news might be Trump's Popeye's spinach. Like what Popeye's spinach is to him, bad news is for Trump, because his polling numbers look pretty good right now. So we'll dive into that a little bit more when we come back and talk about Mr. Santos's troubles. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Horizon Healthcare helps individuals recover from the devastating effects of mental illness and drug dependency. They're currently seeking a first shift office administrative assistant to join their Waukesha team. Qualifications include a high school diploma and basic computer skills. Starting pay is $18 per hour. Contact Tiffany Sanchez now at 414-841-2972. That's 414-841-2972. Join the Horizon Healthcare team today. Contact Tiffany Sanchez at 414-841-2972.
When it comes to hair and makeup artistry, there is only one salon that you need, Raven and Blonde. Their stylists are passionate about their work and committed to giving you the best service possible. From precision cuts to perms, balayage to dimensional color service, and more. The Raven and Blonde stylists do it all. Book your appointment today at ravenandblonde.com. That's ravenandblonde.com. Raven and Blonde, where hair and makeup artistry meets exceptional service. 157 South First Street, Milwaukee.
Civic Media isn't just another broadcast company. We're your neighbors. We bleed green and gold, and we love nothing more than to help fellow Wisconsinites succeed. Whether your business wants to advertise to your local community or the entire state, Civic Media can help. Find out more at civicmedia.us.
Weather brought to you by Taqueria Miyagi, Waukesha's authentic Mexican food truck, which is now open and ready to serve you. Find us at 1610 Lincoln Avenue in the BP gas station parking lot, or call us at 262-278-6590.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. 75 this afternoon, under mainly sunny skies, winds out of the south 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear skies and quiet again tonight, 51. Mainly clear tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 77. Turning cooler Friday and Saturday with a chance for scattered rain showers, highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 66 degrees.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
It ain't complicated. Well, I've grown to hate it.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. And I just want to make this point because, in the past few months, including yesterday with Trump's being found liable for sexual assault and defamation in the Eugene Carroll case. But on top of that, he's been indicted on 34 felony counts. He learned that someone who has worked for him at Mar-a-Lago is cooperating with federal prosecutors on whether he hid documents. He lost a civil trial over a rape accusation from 1996. defended his Access Hollywood contention that celebrities like himself can grab women by the genitals.
For 1,000,000 years, they've been doing that for 1,000,000 years, he said.
Quote, historically, that's true with stars. He's faced rising competition from credible 2024 challengers, including Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, and Senator Tim Scott. And he's seen a growing likelihood he'll be indicted again, this time for trying to corrupt the 2020 elections. And at the same time, Trump has moved up in Republican primary and general election polls, won a flurry of 2024 endorsements from House Republicans, including several from Florida beating DeSantis at a high-stakes inside game, raised a formidable $34 million for his 2024 campaign with a surge of donations after his indictment. He ran former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo out of the race for 2024, basically. And he's revved up his voters with continued claims that the deep state is targeting him, which is apparently appealing. And so, for the first time in a long time, top Republicans and Democrats are saying that it looks impossible to beat Trump in the Republican primary right now, like where we stand today, despite the litany of things I listed off first. And it's just, we didn't really cover it on this show, but last Friday, Robin Voss outright said Trump is a loser.
Yeah, don't want him.
We do not want him on the ticket. We need to do something else to make sure he's not on the ticket. And no one seems to be no establishment Republicans, no conservatives who are like, we do not want this guy to be on the ticket again, has a plan to torpedo him. And it's like deja vu in 2016 all over again.
Well, and it's also like Frankenstein. You created the monster, and now the monster's on its own. And the monster has a whole bunch of supporters with torches and pitchforks. And that's what they're afraid of that.
Yeah, it's but isn't it just like I don't know, there's Teflon Don, but it's almost like, unlike almost any character I feel like we've ever seen in recent history, the more damning information or evidence or, convictions even, only makes him stronger. So it's literally like his spinach.
Well, and he go back to, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any votes.
Yeah.
He said it all those years ago. And I just want to point out, Karina called in, didn't have a chance to get her on the air. He is notoriously known for not paying his bills.
Yes.
So even though this court awarded E. Jean Carroll $5 million, it's highly unlikely she'll see that money ever.
And I don't think, I've never met this woman in my life. And I wonder how much it's the money versus the verdict that actually matters. Because I would say what it's come to represent for other survivors is not nothing.
I think it's more about the validation than it is about the money.
And RAIN, which stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, thanked Carroll for going public yesterday. This was the quote: "We thank E. Jean Carroll, who will inspire survivors to come forward to tell their stories and face perpetrators." So I think it's not nothing, even if she never sees a dime.
Absolutely.
So,
but again, I think this is a part of this man and what could be considered unethical behavior in stiffing contractors and not paying lawyers. And that would seem like not a good character thing to have.
But it's so interesting, and I'm going to make this pivot, because he can somehow get away with it, but it doesn't look like George Santos is going to get away with it.
Oh, George is in. Ooh, Georgie, this is not looking good for George Santos.
George Santos charged by Justice Department in federal probe. So federal prosecutors have filed criminal charges against New York Representative George Santos, the Republican lawmaker who we've been for the last 5 months, basically since he took office. His astonishing pattern of lies and fabrications have just dumbfounded so many of us, and they just keep coming as far as who he's frauded, what he's lied about. But he was taken into federal custody today, and he's expected to appear in federal court in the Eastern District. He faces 13 federal charges, 7 counts of wire fraud.
Yeah, that's not good.
3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, and 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives.
Ruh-roh.
So I don't know if he's as Teflon as Don is.
What will be interesting though is Kevin McCarthy really needs
Oh,
his
yeah.
vote. Really, really, really needs George
Yeah.
Santos' vote. And so I think we're going to see this continued reluctance to hold him to account until the last possible human second.
You think Kevin McCarthy is going to make his bail?
Well, don't ask Trump for it because we know he's not good for the money.
No, they're certainly not. All right. Well, that was a fun first hour.
It was.
But when we come back, Mark Sommerhauser, communications director and policy researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum,
I'm so excited.
is going to be here. And they came out with this report a couple weeks ago. This is the first time that we're going to be able to talk about it. But their most recent research on higher education funding found that there is a discrepancy between where we rank in funding 2-year colleges in Wisconsin, which is pretty high, compared to funding our 4-year colleges, which is pretty low. And so we're going to talk to him about, is that a fair comparison? Where are we with enrollment? Where are we with cost of going to college? So break down that report. And then at 12:30, we're going to talk to Chris Marion, who's the communications specialist for Wisconsin Women in Conservation.
Hey.
So we have 2 great interviews coming up in the next hour. So stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Down, 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 and there it's gonna lie until the Lord comes back around, because you lie like a priceless Persian rug on a rich man's floor. You lie like a condom basket in the sunshine on my porch. Well, you lie like a penny in a parking lot at the grocery store. It just comes so dang natural to you, the way you lie. The way you lie. Well, it's what you do, it's who you are.
It's time to have some fun and make a difference, Waukesha County. Attend the 2023 Habitat for Humanity of Waukesha Dream Builders Gala on June 9th at 6 p.m. in the Dominica Park neighborhood. Help celebrate the accomplishments of last year while helping to create, preserve, and promote affordable housing in our area. Enjoy an upscale barbecue, live entertainment, and the chance to make a real difference in the lives of local families. Register now at habitatwaukesha.org/events. That's habitatwaukesha.org/events. Let's build a brighter future together.
Hey, all you vintage vixens, rockabilly rebels, and cool cats. Find the retro-inspired fashion you're looking for in South Milwaukee at Hollyville. This one-woman small business is known for creating many one-of-a-kind looks reminiscent of the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and sourcing out to other retro clothing brands from around the world. It's where vintage meets modern. Hollyville, 916 Milwaukee Avenue, South Milwaukee. 414-220-0055. That's 414-220-0055, or log on to Hollyville.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Steel.
I'm Steve Kathan. A new 13-count indictment against New York Republican George Santos alleges he was involved in various fraudulent schemes. The charges accuse the congressman of inducing supporters to donate to a company under the false claim that it would be used to get him elected.
When they get money, it goes into a bank account. It's never going to be used for Santos's campaign. It's going to be used for Santos. And that's where we get the banking fraud come in.
Well, legal analyst Jessica Levinson says Santos is also charged with lying to Congress and getting unemployment benefits while he had a job. Taking shape from the Biden administration, a new border strategy as Title 42 pandemic rules expire in a matter of hours. The government now enforcing another provision already on the books.
An individual who is removed under Title 8 is subject to at least a 5-year bar on re-entry into the United States and can face criminal prosecution if they attempt to cross again.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says this impacts people who do not seek protection from another country on the way to the U.S. Will former President Trump pay a political price for the New York case that found him liable of sexual abuse and defamation? CBS's Robert Costa.
Republican sources do not see this moment as the beginning of the political collapse of former President Donald Trump, but it is the possibility of a slow erosion of support, saying, can he really win over those suburban voters should he be the nominee in a general election next year?
A U.S. Army sergeant's just been sentenced to 25 years in prison in Texas.
In April, a Travis County jury found 37-year-old Army Sergeant and Uber driver Daniel Perry guilty of first-degree murder. They believe he intentionally drove his car through marching protesters. As 28-year-old Garrett Foster approached the car with an AK-47, Perry unloaded a .357 Magnum. Perry's mother, Rachel, made a plea prior to sentencing.
His intention was just to protect himself.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he's working on a self-defense pardon. Chris Fox for CBS News, Austin.
Air travelers have plenty of complaints these days, but CBS's Jim Krasula says some airlines get higher marks than others.
JetBlue and Southwest Airlines have reason to fly high. They rank number one, respectively, for premium service and customer service in the annual J.D. Power North American Airline Satisfaction Report. Some 8,000 business and leisure travelers were surveyed. It found overall airline satisfaction continues to decline.
The government says consumer prices rose last month. They were up 4.9% from the year before.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Kristen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great.
Excellent.
Perfect. All right. Well, I already sent you over the questions. So we still have about 3 minutes until we come back, but I'll see you in a second.
Sounds great.
All right.
From Muskego to Milwaukee, always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair. Here's what you need to know. A 62-year-old Waukesha man has been arrested and could face charges of disorderly conduct, intimidation of a victim, and false imprisonment after he allegedly chased 4 boys playing ding-dong ditch on May 8th and then forced one of them into his car with the intention of taking him to either his parents or the police. Police later found the pair who didn't know each other in the parking lot of a Woodman's grocery store. The boy has been reunited with his parents. Newly elected State Senator Dan Knodel will serve as the chair of the Senate Shared Revenue, Elections, and Consumer Protection Committee. It was announced on Tuesday. Knodel, who represents Wisconsin's 8th Senate District, signed onto a letter urging former Vice President Mike Pence to delay certifying the 2020 presidential results. Knodel replacing longtime Senator Alberta Darling, who retired late last year. I'm Jane Matnair. This is Civic Media News.
Accidents can be life-changing, no matter how careful you are. But with Gingras Thompson and Walks, you're not alone. For decades, they've been fighting for the rights of people just like you. They'll let you focus on your recovery while they handle the legal complexities. If you or a loved one has been hurt or killed due to someone else's negligence, contact them now. You may deserve compensation.
All into it, Gingras Thompson and Walks, GTWWarriors.com.
The Shaw 101 FM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Have fun on the lake this summer. Treat yourself and find the watercraft you want at Action Boathouse Showroom just south of 59 on 164 in Waukesha. Check out the fun and versatile Sea-Doo Switch with its powerful Rotax Gen engine. Action Boathouse Showroom also has a selection of luxury fishing boats or pontoon boats from 7 top USA manufacturers. The team at Action Boathouse Showroom is excited to help you launch into the sun this season and onto the lake. Action Boathouse Showroom just north of 59 on 164 in Waukesha.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
That's what we like to do on this show. Find the comedy gold.
I just like non-fungible as a word.
It is a good word.
It's a wonderful, it just has a good mouthfeel.
La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the noon lunch hour of As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And in this first half hour, we are going to talk about funding for higher education with both our two-year schools and our four-year universities. How do they fare? How are they doing? How's enrollment looking? And here to help walk us through it is Mark Sommerhauser, who is the Communications Director and Policy Researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum. Welcome back, Mark.
Always good to be with you, Kristen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so this report came out end of last month?
Yeah, that's correct.
So the report's higher education funding stabilizes overall, but enrollment still falling. But I think a lot of the headlines that came out of this was the two stories basically that look like when it comes to funding education in Wisconsin, when it comes to two-year universities, we're pretty good comparative to other states. Four-year universities, not so much. And so before we get to that, though, I guess why is it important to why study this at all? Why look into how we're funding and how much we're funding compared to other states, our higher education?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, obviously, I think higher education is really kind of that final step in the process of creating and educating the workers, the citizens, the leaders of tomorrow in Wisconsin. Certainly funding more money doesn't always equal a better product, but there's clearly a correlation there. I think, our report looks at the two main forms of funding combined that really pay the vast majority of the cost of instruction, kind of setting aside stuff like research that happens at some of the biggest universities like UW-Madison that is largely funded by federal dollars. The actual instruction and education of students in classrooms is mostly funded just from two main sources. The first being, of course, student tuition, and then the other piece being state appropriations. And so it's those two pieces that we're kind of looking at combined in our report. I think the one other thing that I would add to your question, Kristen, is that I think there's a lot of reason to believe that higher education historically has been somewhat of a competitive advantage for us here in Wisconsin. We're, a medium-sized cold weather state that doesn't attract a lot of in-migration or people moving here from other states. But in the past, one mechanism that we have had to attract in-migration has been, an above average system of colleges and universities that have been a big attraction for people to come here and go to college and, in some cases stay here. So I think that whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, I think that's something to think about in terms of why it's beneficial to hopefully retain the kind of historic edge that we've had here in Wisconsin around higher education.
I'll never forget, because I spent my senior year of high school at Santa Monica High School in LA. Okay. And I remember getting there and people, other students would find out that I was from Wisconsin. I was from Madison. And they're like, oh, I visited there this summer. Like, it's on my short list of like places I'm applying to. And I was like, well, did you go in the winter? Like, California kid? Like, do you know what you're getting yourself into? But it's like for coastal kids, there's a huge draw of how many kids from the coast go to Wisconsin. And so that's a really good point as far as a driver of outside people not from Wisconsin coming to the state.
Yep, absolutely. And obviously, a lot of, college students who are coming, particularly to UW-Madison from the coast, might go here for school and return back to the coast. But like some share of people, whether they're from Illinois, Minnesota, or from the coast or wherever else, are going to put down roots and at least work here for a period of time, which is pretty beneficial to our state.
Absolutely. So I guess going back to the setup, as far as what was found in funding for two-year schools versus four-year schools, is pretty different. So what was
Very
found
different.
there?
Yeah. So I'll just give the very big picture right off, which is that, after trailing the national average for about 5 years, funding per student at public colleges and universities in Wisconsin did overtake it, move slightly above the national average in 2021, which is the most recent year for which we had data that we looked at in this report. But that's everything combined, all colleges, all universities. As you noted, there's a really significant difference when you break that down of the 2-year campuses versus the 4-year campuses here in Wisconsin and how their funding levels compare to their national peers. So 2-year public colleges here in Wisconsin, which is predominantly just the Wisconsin Technical College System campuses, they, looking at funding on a per pupil basis, they received just a little over $17,000, about $17,153 per pupil. And again, that's state appropriations and tuition funds combined.
Okay.
So that was 5th highest in the nation. That was well above the U.S. average of $11,714 per pupil. Okay, now 4-year campuses. And essentially here we are looking at the University of Wisconsin system here when we're talking about 4-year campuses. So all 13 of the campuses. That was just a little over 15,000, about 15,079 per pupil. So that ranked 43rd nationally, and that was well below the U.S. average per pupil average of funding, which was $17,733 per pupil for 4-year campuses nationally.
So when you say it's added, tuition is added to that, does that mean the state? So if some of it is what students are paying, but so in raw dollars of the money the state is giving per pupil, is it more per pupil at 2-year schools than 4-year schools?
Yeah, I'm not certain about that, because the one other variable that complicates this picture a little bit with the 2-year campuses, with the technical college campuses, is that they can do something that the 4-year campuses cannot. They actually have a property tax levy that they can collect from people within the technical college district. So that's the one other component with the 2-year campuses that, I know you had mentioned kind of the difficulty of comparing the 2- and 4-year campuses. And there are many reasons.
Yeah.
And there are many reasons for that. One of which is that the technical college campuses have this funding source that the 4-years do not. And then we can talk about some of the other reasons as well, but it's just difficult. It is kind of apples and oranges, as you mentioned, in trying to compare the two.
We're talking to Mark Sommerhauser, who is the communications director and a policy researcher for the Wisconsin Policy Forum, about one of his newest reports, looking into how we're funding our higher education, both 2-year and 4-year schools, and how that ranks nationally. And it's interesting because I don't know what do you think? We can talk a little bit more about why the apples and oranges nature of 2 years versus 4 years schools, but is there also anything to take away from it? Is there anything to is it does it tell us something about where the legislature has been in the past of what they want to fund versus what they don't want to fund? Is there anything substantial?
That's a good question.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So real quick, I'll just talk a little bit about some of the differences and why we, sort of purposefully did structure our report to hopefully not encourage our readers to compare the two, but rather to compare the 2-year campuses here to the 2-year campuses nationally, the 4 years here to the 4 years nationally, because it is just, the students have a different profile. At the 4-year campuses, you're going to have a lot more full-time students, more part-time students at the 2-year campuses. You're going to have different socioeconomic backgrounds that students are hailing from. In addition, at the 2-year campuses, you're going to have many more courses that are, oriented around technical and vocational education, which are going to bring with them additional, especially capital expenses due to technical and vocational education. It will have facilities, machinery, technology that can be quite expensive. That is, just a different setting than a lecture hall, right, at a 4-year university. So we definitely don't want to encourage people to compare the two in that way, but we do think there is something that can be gleaned from saying, okay, let's compare the 2 years here to their peers nationally, and likewise with the 4 years.
That makes sense. So what have been the trends? So it's, I guess, looking just either taking them both separately or together. The trends is we're back on track because a little while ago we were way below average, and we've kind of caught up a little bit, right, as far as how much per people we're spending.
Yes, that's correct. So, and I was looking for this broken down by 2- and 4-year campuses, and I didn't unfortunately have that data, at my fingertips here. But just looking at all of them combined, the 2- and 4-year campuses combined, that's right. Essentially, what you just said, that we were. If you go back a little further, and we have a figure in our report that kind of breaks this all down over basically the last 2 decades. Wisconsin, for certainly most of the 20-aughts. All of the 20-aughts was above average in per pupil, per student, funding for higher ed. We did dip below that national average around 2015, 2016, and then just here in 21 went back to being slightly above that national average. So, we're a little closer, I guess, to where we were maybe 10, 15 years ago. In that respect. Now, some of that is going to be linked to enrollment in the sense that we have seen enrollment declines here in Wisconsin. So that is going to mean less tuition revenue in some cases, but can also mean that the state dollars go a bit further if they're not stretched over as many students that you're having to educate. So there's always kind of an interplay with enrollment there that can be a little bit complicated in terms of how that plays out. But
because if you're looking at 2021 numbers, what budget would that be included in?
That would be, I think, the 1921 budget, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was it was basically the tail end of what that budget was. We don't have data for the current budget we're living under.
Correct.
And obviously the next budget is not done yet.
Right.
So, these 2-year cycles. And so, all right, well, when we come back, yes, exactly. When we come back, I do want to talk about enrollment and the piece that plays, because at least what I've been seeing, enrollment is down, especially comparatively nationally in Wisconsin. Yes. And what does that tell us, and what ramifications does that have? And also maybe touch on what the UW branch campus is, because there's been a lot of headlines about them and where do they fit in the 2-year versus 4-year conversation. So lots to talk about when we come back. We were talking to Mark Sommerhauser, who's the communications director and policy researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum. Stay tuned.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then, and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love Party Packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
It's time to have some fun and make a difference, Waukesha County. Attend the 2023 Habitat for Humanity of Waukesha Dream Builders Gala on June 9th at 6 p.m. in the Dominica Park neighborhood. Help celebrate the accomplishments of last year while helping to create, preserve, and promote affordable housing in our area. Enjoy an upscale barbecue, live entertainment, and the chance to make a real difference in the lives of local families. Register now at habitatwaukesha.org/events. That's habitatwaukesha.org/events. Let's build a brighter future together.
This is Pat Brightwell from Up North News Radio. On the air, online, or on demand, make it a point to catch the first word on Wisconsin news, sports, and more weekday mornings from 6 to 8 all across the stations of the Civic Media Radio Network.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. 75 this afternoon, under mainly sunny skies, winds out of the south 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear skies and quiet again tonight, 51. Mainly clear tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 77. Turning cooler Friday and Saturday with a chance for scattered rain showers, highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 70 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Big Bend to Menominee Falls. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Because you know I'm all about the data, more data. I'm all about the data, more data. I'm all about the data, more data. I'm all about the data, more data.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are talking to Mark Sommerhauser, who is the Communications Director and Policy Researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum, about funding higher education and how it's looking in Wisconsin. But yeah, enrollment is declining. And I've talked to some young people who are like, I have a small business, or I have this or that, or the trades, and like, the promise of it being worth it sounds like there's less people who are convinced that it's true, but I also feel like
rethinking it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what have you found, like, when you actually look at the data and not just stories, as far as what our enrollment looks like?
Yeah. So there's no question that it's declining, and there's a national trend that's happening of declining higher ed enrollment. But it is a little more pronounced here in Wisconsin, and to some extent that does appear to be kind of a regional phenomenon rather than a Wisconsin-specific one. We're kind of seeing that throughout the Midwest. But the big picture is you had this kind of the millennial generation, that sort of demographic bubble, more young people choosing to go to college. We kind of hit a high point during the Great Recession, actually, around 2010, 2011. Where many, many higher ed institutions saw record enrollment levels. And that's where we kind of peaked in terms of total higher ed enrollment here in Wisconsin was 2010 was our peak year. Since that time, our higher ed enrollment has been on a sort of slow decline here in Wisconsin, again, sort of mirroring what is happening in most other places. But we did see that accelerate specifically just during the last 3 years during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Again, there is a national trend that we're sort of following there, but we're a little more pronounced than what you see nationally. But then also, and we can talk a little bit about this, that top line number obscures some really big differences between different types of campuses. We're seeing a much bigger enrollment decline at the 2-year campuses than the 4-year.
Oh, interesting.
And then even
So it's worse. I mean, it's more of a decline at 2 years. I would have thought it would be opposite.
Me too.
Correct. It's more pronounced here. Let me see if I can get you the exact. Yeah. So the UW system enrollment, let's just take the pandemic here. The last 3 years, it declined 5.3%. Technical college system in the last 3 years, enrollment was down 10.3%. So, could be that some of those young people who might have considered technical college with an extremely tight labor market right now, a lot of opportunities, a lot of job openings. Yeah. There are opportunities for people out there to get jobs, without necessarily having to go through the process of getting a technical college education. So that could certainly be part of what's influencing that. A big part of it is just demographics. The high school classes, the graduating high school classes are just smaller now than they were in 2010. And so that's absolutely, playing into it. But the interesting thing too, is that even if you just set aside the 2-year and you only look at the 4-year campuses, huge differences in the enrollment trends. UW-Madison, just over the last 3 years, gained 10% in enrollment. So it's on a trajectory of continuing to get bigger, continuing to see more and more students. But then as you look around the state, the only other UW system campus that increased in enrollment here over the last 3 years was UW Green Bay. The others declined, and some declined quite markedly. So, we can look at places like UW Milwaukee, Whitewater, Eau Claire, Oshkosh, UW Parkside, Platteville, all were seeing double-digit percentage declines in enrollment. So once again, it's like you can look at these top-line numbers, but then when you look beneath, there's really different dynamics at play there depending on what type of university or college.
Well, and that doesn't even get into what's, I think, made headlines a lot this year, which is all the 2-year UW branch campuses, with Platteville closing without a lot of notice, if you want to put it that way.
At Richland Center,
yeah, Richland Center, and then also just conversations of other campuses and should they combine, should they close? Because is there an argument here that we have if enrollment is declining, some dollars are getting stretched thin for four-year universities, that we don't need as many higher education options as we have right now between the Wisconsin Technical College system and the UW system. And I don't want to put you in the spot to make it a choice there, but is that a fair?
I will definitely not be offering my hot takes on how many campuses we need in Wisconsin, but because that is the absolute, third rail of any of these conversations, right? Is like anytime you even bring up that topic, there are understandably a lot of institutions that are very defensive. And worry about how that impacts their future. There is no question that particularly at some of these 2-year, what was the former UW colleges, they were merged with the 4-year campuses back in 2017 when the regents took a vote to merge all the UW colleges into the larger system. And essentially now each of the 4-year universities has like one or two of those former UW colleges that are like paired up with them. And there's no question that they have seen the biggest decline in enrollment. Just since 2019, enrollment at those 2-year former UW colleges campuses dropped by 32%. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so there is certainly a question about kind of what their future looks like. And once again, you can't think about it just from a statewide perspective, because some have seen even bigger enrollment declines. Some are coming closer to holding steady. But, I know, for instance, you mentioned Richland, UW Richland. There's a discussion over in suburban Milwaukee and Washington County about possibly merging a UW college there with a local technical college, I believe, in Washington County. And again, I don't know if that decision's been made, but I just know there's conversations that have been publicly happening around that. So that is definitely one of the biggest question marks, is kind of where those branch campuses sort of fit in the bigger picture.
I have to cut you off because we have to go to a break. Never enough time, but Mark Sommerhauser, Communications Director and Policy Researcher for Wisconsin Policy Forum. I will link this to our show notes for today. Super interesting, and it'll be super interesting to see where we go in this year's budget. So thanks so much for your time.
Agreed. Thank you, Kristen.
All right.
WAUK 540 AM, Franklin's choice for News Talk Radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
CBS News brief. A member of Congress arrested today on federal criminal charges. It's New York Republican George Santos, who admitted lying about his past and now faces a host of charges that include wire fraud and money laundering. Legal analyst Jessica Levinson.
This goes to the heart of his ability to be a public servant.
Homeland Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas vows a tighter southern border in the days ahead.
The lifting of the Title 42 public health order does not mean our border is open. In fact, it is the contrary.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad you didn't drive an hour and 45 minutes to get here. As much as I would have loved to see you in person, that is a lot for less than a half hour.
Well, I really wanted to because I just thought it would be fun. And at the time, it seemed like a good idea. But you know how.
There's better ways to spend a beautiful, beautiful day than driving here and back.
Yes. Well, thanks so much for inviting me on. This is great.
Yeah, this is going to be super fun. So we'll come back and first let's just talk about the program, who's involved in the program, how many different women it's reached. We can talk about what are the activities and the learning circles and all of that. We can talk about the events. So I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. But the first break is at 12:48, so we have a good chunk of time to get into it.
Awesome. Well,
all right,
looking forward.
Perfect. So we have 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we'll come back and you'll be able to see us.
Okay. Thanks. Is the sound good? Am I close enough?
Sounds good. You look good.
All right. Awesome.
Okay.
School bus crash Friday. 4 teenagers have been picked up so far, and police were still looking for one more person early this morning. One of the kids in the stolen Kia was badly injured. A child on the bus who was hurt should be okay. In sports, the Dodgers beat the Brewers last night 6-2. The rubber match of the series is today. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
High pay with excellent benefits? Check. Fair treatment and safe work conditions? Check. A paid training program? Check. Check all of your career boxes with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades of District Council 7. Experienced industrial painters and drywall finishers needed now or become an apprentice. Call Tom Coyne at 262-488-4839 today. 262-488-4839 or go to iupatdc7.com.
Are record high energy and water costs putting a squeeze on your fixed or limited incomes? With inflation rising at record levels and incomes not keeping pace, you might be one of tens of thousands of Wisconsin residents who are struggling to survive. While you may not ask for it, the Keep Wisconsin Warm Cool Fund and your local energy assistance providers are here to help. No Wisconsin resident should ever have to be without heat, water, or power. For a hand up, apply today and call 1-800-506-5596. That's 800-506-5596. Or visit www.heat.help. That's www.heat.help.
Up North News Radio is Wisconsin's new choice for progressive talk about important state issues from the team that brings you the news through social media, newsletters, and here on the radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Join me weekday mornings from 6 to 8 a.m.
Oh, can you take care of her? Oh, maybe you can spare her several moments of your consideration leading up to the final destination. Oh, the earth is...
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. And I'm so excited to talk about this. I think you found this at first, and then I saw it in the Journal Sentinel. But there is a organization in Wisconsin that is helping women landowners connect and learn about conservation practices and resources and funding opportunities. And it sounds like, even though I don't really own any land and I don't know how to take anything care of anything, including most of my plants.
Not yet.
Something that sounds really fun to be a part of. So here to help us talk about it is Chris Marion, who's the communications specialist with Wisconsin Women in Conservation. Welcome to the show, Chris.
It's so great to be with you guys. I'm a little intimidated because I'm a big fan, Chris.
Oh, no, there's nothing to be intimidated about.
Easy peasy.
I feel
no
pressure
worries.
to be funny, and that's not going to happen.
I'm sure you have a great sense of humor, and that's all you require is just a willingness to play.
I know how to play, so.
Perfect. So tell us, for people who are unfamiliar, what is Wisconsin Women in Conservation?
Well, thanks so much for asking. First of all, we should maybe start with what conservation is.
That is a great starting point.
Yeah, I think that people sometimes associate conservation with hunting. You know, a lot of our conservation programs have to do with preserving public lands, hunting lands. But conservation, by definition, right, is just when you're saving or protecting something. And so conservation in our context is saving land, saving soil, saving and protecting water. So we kind of fall under the sort of the big ag umbrella of taking care of soil, water, and wildlife. So that's kind of the foundation of what we're all about. And we're a 5-year project that is a collaboration between 4 different agricultural nonprofits: Wisconsin Farmers Union, Renewing the Countryside, which is sort of out of the Minneapolis, Eau Claire area, Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, kind of East Troy area, and then finally, let's see, we did Farmers Union, Renewing the Countryside, Marble Seed. Marble Seed is the final group. Used to be Moses, which was the largest organic and sustainable nonprofit in the nation. So we've got a powerful group of agricultural nonprofits that are actually funded by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, NRCS, which is a USDA, United States Department of Agriculture program. And we're funded by them to help women landowners, farmers, farm curious, navigate all of these acronyms.
Yes, there are a lot. Even reading about it, I was like, this is a lot of things to keep track of. I'm glad Chris can explain it. I'm not going to try to.
It's alphabet soup. It's like driving on country roads, right, in Wisconsin. But it's complicated and it's confusing. And the truth is, women are a growing force on the land, but many women didn't grow up being in charge of the land decisions. They didn't grow up going into that USDA office that's in every county. And so at a really basic level, our goal is to get women who are controlling land, stewarding land, to get through that USDA doorway. And like literally, we want people to go visit the office. And then our end goal is to get conservation on the land, to get more good conservation practices on the land. So everything we do is women only, with very few exceptions. We put people in touch with conservation experts, so professionals in the field who are also all women. And then we're all encouraging each other through kind of a peer support model to do better and do more and take advantage of those cost share programs that come through the federal government when they're available. So we do have some money and lots of help, a ton of enthusiasm, and a lot of snacks.
A lot of snacks. Is it a lot of homegrown snacks? Is it people bringing their own food that they grew, or is it like Trader Joe's?
Oh, no Trader Joe's. So
no Trader Joe's.
I don't love a Trader Joe's snack, but we are super committed to local food, to local economies. And so, yeah, when you come to an event, you will be eating local food, and probably you might even have some local cocktails.
Nice.
We are Esco's Wisconsin. Chris is very pro both of those.
Both of those things. And so it's when I was looking at the website, in Wisconsin alone, there's almost 40,000 female producers.
Mm-hmm.
That blew me away. And 35% of all the producers in the state are women.
Yeah, so it's really, this is in some ways new and uncharted territory. That we're kind of playing catch up to some things that have been realities and some things that are new. So the reality is women have always been farming.
Totally.
Women have always been half of the equation. And women own half of the farmland. They either own or co-own, right? But it used to be that women couldn't own land. Now, they weren't forbidden from doing it, but it was much more common for guys to be on those leases. What's more, up until the 70s, women couldn't get credit.
Yeah, there's that.
If you know anything about farming, you know that there's a lot of credit involved in the, you acquiring land, acquiring equipment. And so this is an attempt, there's a big attempt by the USDA at this point to make up for historical harms done to women and to minorities and to generally underserved populations. And it's a big issue, but women in particular are now really rising in power in terms of controlling the landscape. You mentioned that 35% number. 35% of the producers, so that's ag producers in Wisconsin, now self-identify as women, being the primary decision maker on the farm. That's a lot. That's a big difference. And what's interesting about this demographic is a high percentage of that 35% are first generation and new and beginning farmers. So getting good conservation information in the hands of these producers is really, really, really significant. The other part of this is women tend to live longer, and there's a lot of widows who have come into control of farmland, and who are now having to manage leases and the care of that property where they didn't before. So that's another big target audience for us. And so, yeah, it's a wild ride. Our events are full of people of all ages. We've got dairy people, we've got prairie stewards. One of the people we're seeing a lot of, the groups we're seeing a lot of now, are women who have bought property in the country because they love being in the countryside, and now they want to do something really good with the land they have. They want to help save the world, and they want to do it by learning how to take care of their forests, learning how to put prairies in, learning how to take care of their streams and rivers. And these are, in this day and age, in the middle of this climate crisis, this is really important work, and women realize it. So this is a hugely mission-driven crowd. These are very earnest people. We might be eating and drinking, but we are very serious about what we're doing.
We're talking to Chris Marion, who is a communications specialist for Wisconsin Women in Conservation. And I guess, so tell me about these learning circles, because it sounds like they are long and they're intimate and there's a lot of conversations. It's what women do best, right? Like we do like to talk. And so, like, what is, like, describe or draw the picture of what one of the learning circles looks and sounds like.
Yeah, this is so fun. This was really something that got highlighted in the Journal Sentinel article, because the reporter tagged along, came to a learning circle, and did a lot of work interviewing our kind of the history behind this project. There are 2 women researchers who are on our team who've been researching the way women learn for over a decade, and our model is based on their research. And so their research indicates, this is Jean Eels and Rebecca Christoffel, both the doctors. We have a lot of doctors on our team, actually, but there are 2 of them. And they have found that women want to have more interaction. So women don't want to go to a class that happens to be on a farm that's about agronomy. They want to sit in a discussion and have a back and forth dialogue about, what does this mean? What does soil health mean? What does microbial life mean? What does it feel like? What does good soil feel like? What does it smell like? Can we walk around? Can we look in your barns? We're pretty nosy, but I will say, there's really not a farmer out there who doesn't want to get on another farmer's land.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's always fun. I mean, field days work great for men and women. And if you were to just Google, say, conservation event, other than Earth Day things, you would end up seeing a lot of ag events on farms that have a guy up front and a bunch of guys standing listening. It's very fascinating to stand on someone else's farm and peek into their operation.
Like, what are you doing over there? How does that work over here?
I will never now be able to get this vision out of my head of people peeking in other people's barns, like a medicine cabinet, like, oh, what's in there?
Oh, I mean, you captured the attitude perfectly. Is like, you just cannot get enough of, like, oh my gosh, how are they handling weeds, or how are they dealing with these invasive species? I did this good thing. I planted a prairie. Now my prairie's full of prickly ash. And how are other people dealing with this? Is there a tool? Do you have a little tractor, a big tractor? Are you using a mower? We love this stuff. So our learning circles are basically a field day event turned inward. So instead of people facing forward and looking at some teacher, it's people in a circle, sometimes inside. Like we had an event in the Urban Ecology Center in Milwaukee, because we were doing these things early on, before it was warm. Now all of our things are moving outside. We're arranged in a circle, and we spend the first hour or more of our events going around the circle, telling who we are, what's our land love story, what's our origin story, why do we care about this stuff, and what do we need, what are our biggest concerns. And in the process of doing that, you build a network. But it might take an hour and a half, but then you have this network of people, know their deal, their story. Then you're also meeting conservation professionals. Our professionals that we invite to teach are part of the circle. So they're telling their story. Why did they get involved in this as a profession? So by the time we get done, there's been a lot of laughing, there's been a lot of kvetching, and a lot of, I would say, very affirming interactions that make you realize you are not the only one who feels confused about this.
Mhm.
Because the science on conservation is changing all the time. One of
Yeah.
the new, it's not new, but it's sort of new in the public imagination, is the idea that soil health is the basis of everything. Now, indigenous cultures have known this forever. And have a real relationship with the land and the wildlife. But for those of us who've been involved in, say, production ag or just development of rural places, we just use the resource. We use it up, and we do our best to take care of our animals, but taking care of the animals in the soil is a bit of a new concept. And there's a lot of great science, and we are discussing that science at our learning circles and our field days, but it's not in a classroom or a one direction kind of format. It's very relational. So people leave learning a lot, feeling empowered, like, okay, it's a lot, but I can do this.
Yeah.
And two, now I know someone down the road from me, even if it's an hour away, who I can go connect with and get help from. So we have a big mentorship. We have a formal mentorship network.
Perfect. So we're going to talk about more about the mentorship network and the upcoming events for May and June when we come back. Our guest is Chris Marion, who's a communications specialist with Wisconsin Women in Conservation. Stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Are record high energy and water costs putting a squeeze on your fixed or limited incomes? With inflation rising at record levels and incomes not keeping pace, you might be one of tens of thousands of Wisconsin residents who are struggling to survive. While you may not ask for it, the Keep Wisconsin Warm Cool Fund and your local energy assistance providers are here to help. No Wisconsin resident should ever have to be without heat, water, or power. For a hand up, apply today and call 1-800-506-5596. That's 800-506-5596. Or visit www.heat.help. That's www.heat.help.
Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And we're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app.
Weather brought to you by Taqueria Miyagi, Waukesha's authentic Mexican food truck, which is now open and ready to serve you. Find us at 1610 Lincoln Avenue in the BP gas station parking lot, or call us at 262-278-6590.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Temperatures reach up to 75 this afternoon under mainly clear skies. Winds out of the southeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight. Lows dip down to about 51. High temperatures reach up to 77 tomorrow. Mainly sunny. Upper 60s Friday and Saturday with scattered showers possible both days. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 70 degrees.
A progressive voice from Beaver Dam to Kenosha. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair, and we are talking to Chris Marion, who is a communication specialist for Wisconsin Women in Conservation. And I want to make sure that we cover all of the upcoming events that you guys have going on for May and June.
So it is a mouthful, isn't it?
It's fun because I feel like Wisconsin Women It's fun because it's alliteration, but I think Sarah Godlewski has Wisconsin Women Win or something like that. Sometimes it's a little bit of a mouthful where you're like, that's a lot of W's. Okay, go.
Chris, how do you feel about WeWick?
Yes, that's what we call ourselves. So WeWick is what we generally call ourselves, and that's our website. So it would be great if you went and poked around over there, wiwic.org. We've got podcast on there. You can hear Wisconsin women conservationists talk about their passion for land and the earth. And you can see all of our events. And we also have lots of webinars that are archived on our blog. So you can learn a lot just poking around.
Nice. And then as far as things coming up, because you guys, this is across the state, right? It's not just one part.
Yeah. So we're basically trying to really pull people together in tri-county regional networks. And we're very active in 5, actually 6 areas right now. And we'll expand to 3 or 4 more next year for the next 2 years. But people can come wherever. If you want to get in the car and drive to something that looks interesting in a county that's a couple hours away from you, you should do it. And we've got 2 events this week on Thursday and Friday. They're both our learning circles. So they're not a field day. You wouldn't get a farm tour in these, but these are at great places. So one is at the Enchanted Barn in Hillsdale, which is, I think it's in Polk, might be in Polk County, but up that direction. Then we have one at Freedom Park in Prescott, which is a little bit further south, both on the western side of the state. And then we have field days on the northeastern side, or learning circles on the northeastern side of the state next week. We're also starting a webinar series. It's our conservation summer camp. And these are once a month. And our first one is on the 18th. So next Thursday, and it's on birds. So it's about conservation helpers that are animals. We're going to cover birds and bugs and bats and snakes and turtles this year. So,
do you have any thoughts on people talking to birds, Chris?
Oh, well, actually,
do you encourage the talking to birds?
I've been talking to birds all morning. I've got an Oriole feeder.
Thank you. I'm not alone, Chris, because I talk to the hummingbirds when they show up, and I just usually say, "Hi, welcome back. You're safe here."
Well, people play music for their cows, so this is not.
That's not a weird thing. I don't judge. I just love to bring it up.
Oh yeah, always talking to the birds. I actually have more conversation with my frogs here because I live on a wetland. But when I'm in my office, it's the birds right there in the window. It's Oriole season, so we've got jelly all over the farm right now. Jelly and oranges are just everywhere.
And there have just been some disturbing statistics coming out about how many songbirds we have lost, not just in Wisconsin, but around the country. It's like 1 billion birds.
Really? I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, this is over a stretch of time, but songbirds are really important to the ecosystem too.
Well, if you were to look up Xerces Society, it starts with an X, not a Z. But Xerces Society has a ton of stats on how many species we're losing yearly worldwide. And, this is the dark side of this project, is that we're in an emergency. We're in a climate emergency. We talk about that a lot, but we're in an ecosystem failure for multiple species that add a ton to our lives. And that agriculture relies on. So we talk a lot about honeybees, right? Everybody wants to see bees, but it's not just bees. There are tons of critters that we need above the ground, in the air, but also below the ground that are perishing because of our lack of good conservation practices.
So I guess finally, as far as kind of the average person who's listening to this right now, maybe they are a farmer, maybe they have a community garden, maybe they don't do anything at all. But as far as for anyone who's listening, what would you say they should know, get involved with? How do you get involved in conservation?
So luckily, we have a great administration federally right now who is interested in getting a lot of people involved in conservation. So the United States Department of Ag has generally only really cared about producers and larger producers. But under this administration and under the Obama administration too, there have been some great initiatives to help urban farmers, niche farmers, innovative farmers. So we can help connect you. If you just want to do a good job with a pollinator patch in your backyard, we got something for you. We got something for you at Wisconsin Women in Conservation. We're not just for ag producers.
I feel like that's what I need is a pollinator patch. That's what
Kristen needs help.
Yes,
Oh my
I
gosh,
do. I
do
definitely
it.
need help. I have like not a lot of. I don't have a big yard, but I have a yard finally for the first time in my life, and so try to figure out what to do with it.
Well, everybody can participate in conservation. That's the good news. Whether it's keeping rain from creating runoff and taking, dirt and pesticides and chemicals off your driveway into the public sewer where it eventually, pollutes our water. There's so much that individuals can do on every scale, and we're here for everybody. We have a Milwaukee Urban Ag Network that just started. That's mostly pulling together community garden folks and small scale growers that are supporting farmers markets. But USDA is now putting some money where their mouth is. We can help you get some access to that. But just signing up for our webinars, they're once a month. They're an hour at lunch. You will learn a ton about how to do the best for the birds and the beetles and the snakes and the bats. Now, not everybody wants to do their best for bats and snakes, but you should.
They deserve it too. Absolutely.
Yes, they do.
Chris, when is the next field day so I can go snoop in people's barns?
Oh gosh, if you want to get nosy, June 1 starts our field days, and we'll have 41 events this year. We've got a ton of events. So if you're up for traveling, you can come see great operations. The first one is Blue Ox Farm. That's in Wheeler. And this is a grazing sheep and Highland cow operation. Those really cute cows with the bangs and the long horns. So between sheep and cute cows, all cows are cute. That is going to be a really beautiful, lovely field day. Then we're having one June 23rd at Keewatin Farms, which is over near Viroqua and Viola. This is the home of driftless curiosity. So this is going to be a really fun field day. CSA, birds, everything at that.
Awesome. All right. Well, we will link all of that to our show notes today. Chris, Marion, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Great to be with you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, yeah, that sounds super interesting. Add it to the bucket list, Jane. All right. Well, we're going to take a break for the top of the hour news. And when we come back, the No Sour Ha Fun Time Power Hour. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Feeling down, anxious, depressed? You are not alone. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 280 million people have depression, but the majority never receive treatment. At WellPoint Care Network, they can help. Their outpatient clinic staff are both qualified and caring, not to mention highly trained in partnering with you on your healing journey. Make an appointment today at wellpointcare.org. They serve all ages, infants, children, and adults. Both in-person and virtual services are available. Learn more at wellpointcare.org. It's time to have some fun and make a difference, Waukesha County. Attend the 2023 Habitat for Humanity of Waukesha Dream Builders Gala on June 9th at 6 p.m. in the Dominica Park neighborhood. Help celebrate the accomplishments of last year while helping to create, preserve, and promote affordable housing in our area. Enjoy an upscale barbecue, live entertainment, and the chance to make a real difference in the lives of local families. Register now at habitatwaukesha.org/events. That's habitatwaukesha.org/events. Let's build a
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Steve Kathan. Wire fraud and money laundering headline the charges against a New York Republican congressman who's been under fire for lying since he won election last November. WCBS TV's Christina Fan.
Federal grand jury returned an indictment, a 13-count indictment against embattled Congressman George Santos Tuesday. Then earlier this morning, around 9 o'clock, we were told he surrendered himself to the federal courthouse behind us. He avoided the crush of reporters, seemed to have gone in through a back entrance where we now believe he is being processed, and he will be arraigned sometime later this afternoon.
In a matter of hours, pandemic measures that allowed the expulsion of migrants expire. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says now the focus will be on an existing measure, Title VIII. It imposes restrictions that could lead to criminal charges if violated.
Our efforts within the constraints of our broken immigration system are focused on ensuring that the process is safe, orderly, and humane, all while protecting our dedicated workforce and our communities.
The government says consumer prices rose last month, and they were up 4.9% from the year before. CBS's Jill Schlesinger.
Energy prices were down 5.1% from a year ago, led lower by gas, which is down 12.2% from a year ago. Food is up by 7.7% overall, but you get a real benefit if you eat at home these days. Food at home is 7.1% higher than a year ago. Food away from home, 8.6%.
Correspondent Ed O'Keefe on the lack of any apparent progress on the debt ceiling after a White House meeting yesterday.
President Biden and congressional leaders are no closer to a deal. And if anything, they're doubling down on their dueling positions with a June 1st default deadline hanging over Washington. All the leaders signaling they'd like to remove the threat of default, but House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said he didn't see any new movement towards an agreement. That said, the president and congressional leaders are instructing staff to keep working on details. They plan to meet again on Friday.
In a sweeping new study, researchers study gun violence and its impact in a major city, Chicago. Harvard University's Robert Sampson and others looked at data over a 25-year period ending in 2021.
The basic fact of the profound inequalities that exist. They exist by race, they exist by sex, and they exist differentially by the types of violence.
Half of Black and Latino residents surveyed in Chicago said they'd seen a shooting. Wall Street, the Dow is down 200 points. This is CBS News.
Need to hire quality candidates fast? You need Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform helps you attract, interview.
WAUK 540 AM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair. Here's what you need to know. 4 people were hurt after an apparent explosion at the Windsor condominium complex on Madison's west side Tuesday evening. Fire Chief Chris Carbon says one of the units in the building is believed to be the origin of the blast. Carbon says at least 6 units were affected. The entire building is now uninhabitable. 22-year-old Krista Marie Welch has been missing from Polk County since May 7th. She left the area in an unknown vehicle after getting a call saying her niece was injured and in the hospital. Police say her niece was not hurt. Welch has ties to the Green Bay area and also in Maine. Since leaving, she's had no contact with her family or friends, and her phone is off. Welch is also believed to be no longer taking her mental health-related medications. If you've seen Krista Marie Welch or know where she is, please contact local law enforcement. I'm Jane Matnair. This is Civic Media News.
When snack time rolls around, don't settle for the same old, same old. Spice it up with Emmanuel's Mix. Imagine this: corn rice cereal, pretzels, and mammoth pecans, plus a unique coating that perfectly melts sweet and salty. Emmanuel's Mix Spicy Blend even won first place in the Grand Champion Eats and Treats competition at the Wisconsin State Fair. Now that's tasty. A proud member of Something Special from Wisconsin and served on the sweet level of Fiserv Forum. Emmanuel's Mix. Log on to emmanuelsmix.com. That's emmanuelsmix.com. And get snacking.
WAUK 540 AM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Are you an experienced industrial painter, drywall finisher, or want to be? Do you want more than a job, but a high-paying career where your interests are well represented, ensuring a safe work environment? The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades of District Council 7 wants you. Bring your knowledge or ask about paid training. Learn more now. Call Tom Coyne, 262-488-4839, 262-488-4839, or go to the union's website, iupatdc7.com.
If you love to spend time in the kitchen, elevate your cooking game with a pantry full of premium hemp products from Mary Jane's Hemp Shop in Waukesha. Mary Jane sells flights of Himalayan sea salts, raw sugar flights, local raw honey, and just in time for summer, a variety of salt rubs for meat and grilling. Not sure how to use the products in your own kitchen? Check out Mary Jane's YouTube channel for ideas and recipes. Elevate your cooking game at Mary Jane's Hemp Shop, 335 West Main Street, Waukesha, or online at maryjanespantry.shop.
A progressive voice from Manitowoc to Janesville. WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome to the No Sour Ha Ha Fun Time Power Hour.
You need some whoop 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 boing. You know?
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin! Are there any seasonal or holiday marketing emails you would like to opt out of? 844-967-2789, whether it's a holiday you don't celebrate or you have not great memories of. Is there something that you don't necessarily want to unsubscribe entirely from the brand sending you, their newest sale? But is there anything specific that you wish you could just kind of, I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. And I ask because Mother's Day is on Sunday.
It is.
And for many people, Mother's Day is a great day to celebrate your mom. If you are a mom, the moms in your life. For some people, Mother's Day, Father's Day is really hard.
And can be very painful.
And can be very, very painful. And, I think some of us who are compassionate and have empathy know to sometimes tread lightly when it comes to, the overwhelming amount of everyone will post a picture of their mother on Instagram on Sunday and stuff, and just kind of friends who have lost their moms, or if you're dealing with infertility, it can be a hard day. So now brands are offering a way to stop the flood of Mother's Day marketing emails, sparing customers who don't want them to, from potentially bittersweet messages or even painful reminders. And I think that's pretty thoughtful.
It is. It's giving people the option, right? It's not stopping these for everyone.
No.
You can just opt out of this if you don't want to. Hey, looking for an idea for your mom this Sunday? Try this.
Yes, exactly. Because as we just said, the loss of a family member or infertility, there's a lot of reasons why Mother's Day can be difficult for people. And so some brands like Levi's and DoorDash, Ancestry, K Jewelers, Ancestry, it's Etsy and Canva, also Canva, really, have allowed customers to opt out of emails for Mother's Day. And I just thought it was interesting because I wonder what other holidays strike a nerve or like hit a nerve with people that you might want to opt out from having to see. Is there any for you, Jane?
I honestly, I can't think of any. I mean, isn't Labor Day associated with like betting? I'm trying to think what goes on sale on, what's the big sale thing when it's Labor Day?
I heard betting, betting on horses, and I was like, what?
No, betting.
Isn't it about labor?
No, I don't want to see this the sale on sheets. It's very upsetting.
Yeah, and and I don't, especially with some of the companies that it's like, what is Canva? What are they doing?
Well,
maybe I guess Canva, you can make your own card for your mother and print it off. Yeah.
But Levi's?
Mother's Day sale?
Get mom a pair of 501s. It's what she's always wanted.
Yeah, I mean, yes. And it's also the opportunity that every company, especially every retailer, takes every season, every holiday as an opportunity. I mean, some of these marketing campaigns are also just a lot. Like I'll sign up for something and I get like 3 emails in a day.
Oh man.
And it's like I gotta stop. I think I need to actually unsubscribe to this one, but I shop at ThreadUp a lot, which is secondhand clothes. And I think they send 1 to 2 emails every day about something like, buy this, you forgot that. Da, 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 da.
Oh, you need this.
And so there's just like aggressive e-commerce is aggressive on emails anyways. So it's interesting to like, well, but why wouldn't someone just totally unsubscribe? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it just is an interesting. Is this the biggest problem?
Well, for some, again, I was fortunate to have a loving mother, and we had a good relationship. Maybe not all of our lives. There was a little rocky period in
Yeah.
there, but so I'm lucky to have that and to have those good memories. And if you don't, I can see where it would be painful, and you wouldn't want that reminder. But again, this isn't ending it for everyone. You have the option to opt out of getting these messages.
But this is, I mean, DoorDash is interesting. DoorDash started offering consumers the ability to opt out of Mother's Day messaging starting last year. And it's doing the same for Father's Day. More than 80,000 consumers have opted out of Mother's Day marketing this year as of April 26th, DoorDash told Axios.
Wow.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
And then the company also offers the ability for consumers to opt out of alcohol-related marketing.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. Pets-related marketing, which makes sense if you don't have a pet, on a year-round basis, and will continue to explore ways to personalize the experience for each individual. So I don't know. It's an interesting. I think it says more about trust the personalization of using your data, trying to make a unique experience for you and have the brand make you feel like the brand cares about you. Because ultimately, it still comes back to you buying stuff,
Well,
right?
exactly. Because I hate to be the bearer of bad news. They don't care about you. They just want to sell you stuff.
They just want to sell you
pretty much.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting if there was anything in particular you would like to opt out of when it comes to marketing messages, because it's annoying or painful, or you don't celebrate it, or you don't have a pet, any of those, or you're like the alcohol thing, like
That makes
you're
a lot
sober.
of sense to me. Yes.
844-967-2789. But then I also have to share this thing that I just saw at the break. Just a joke, and then we can move on. But remember when Dan Quayle misspelled potato?
Oh, like it was yesterday.
And everyone was like, that's a good enough reason for him to not be president. We should be like that again.
Well, and wasn't it John Dean who went, woohoo?
Howard Dean.
Howard Dean, thank you.
When he won New Hampshire?
Yeah, and then that killed him.
Killed him.
That just crushed
His
him.
yeehaw.
Yeah.
People were not into it.
No, didn't like the yee.
But anyways, so then you found this fun feel-good story of a Madison filmmaker buying the rights to adapt a Stephen King story for a whole whopping $1.
This is a great thing, and I've loved Stephen King since I was in grade school.
Really? What's your favorite?
Oh, there's so many good ones. The Shining is so good.
Have you read a lot of Stephen
Oh,
King?
yeah.
See, I've seen a lot of the movies. I'm not sure I've ever sat down and read a Stephen King novel.
It's really worthwhile.
Okay.
He's a big music fan, and so he uses a lot of musical references to place you in that time.
Oh, interesting.
And so he's very, very detailed. But so he set this up so people could do this.
Really?
To buy his properties for $1. They have a year to complete this project. And you can't use it for profit, but you can use it for nonprofits.
Okay.
But that's a pretty generous thing for such a lucrative author to do.
Oh, yeah. So the Cap Times covered this. So in 2021, Max Blaska was in Bangor, Maine, and on tour. He's on a tour of locations that appear in the work of the best-selling horror novelist Stephen King. And the Madison resident decided to take part in King's Dollar Baby program.
Dollar Baby.
Dollar Baby. While King's work has been adapted into dozens of movies and television shows, he's written so much that dozens of his short stories remain unfilmed. So King started his Dollar Baby for student and amateur filmmakers, where he would sell the rights to one of those stories for $1 for 1 year. Quote, you send me $1 and you get the contract, Blaska said. The only catch is that you can't profit off the film, and King owns the rights to it once it's done. And so for Blaska, who lives with depression and is a mental health advocate, there was one clear and personal choice for the story he wanted to adapt. Last Rung on the Ladder, which appears in King's 1978 story collection Night Shift, tells of a brother who saves his younger sister from an accident when they are children. They drift apart as adults until the brother learns decades later that his sister has committed suicide. Last Rung on the Ladder is not a horror story, but has some emotional poignancy of King's Stand By Me. That's such a great story.
Isn't that wonderful?
I wonder if he's going to film it in Wisconsin.
He did film it.
Oh, he didn't even film. Yeah.
I believe it's finished. Yeah. And a bunch of locations around the state. And it's just a really, again, it's a very generous thing for Stephen King to do. He wouldn't have to do that. And he's been just such a prolific author for all of these decades. It's, I just think that's great for young filmmakers, and
yeah, it's like a win-win-win.
Right? It's a great starting
like
place.
for Stephen King, if any of these like are a hit and win an Oscar for best short film,
wouldn't that be
he owns the rights to them.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, just it's interesting, and we haven't. I reached out to the media contact at the WGA, who to try to see if we can get a representative to come on and talk about the writers' strike. But it's, I think there's something to be said about artists supporting artists, right? And I think Stephen King seeing that he is more interested in the interpretations of his work by other artists, that he's willing to just
go ahead,
basically give it away.
Yeah, go ahead,
because he thinks that would be more interesting, just to see what students and amateur filmmakers can do with it versus hoarding. I'm sure he has plenty of money.
Oh, I'm sure he does.
I wonder if he still has his blue check mark that he didn't want.
That's funny.
I'm going to check at the break. All right. Well, just a little preview for the bottom of the hour. I'm going, but it's sold out. So when we booked these guys, it wasn't sold out yet. But the Milwaukee Police Department and the Milwaukee Fire Department have a fundraising event on Saturday night where they are boxing, head-to-head, battle of the badges.
Fist.
So we have a friend of the show, Joe Flick, who's been on a couple times. He is joining us, he is a firefighter. But we have two police officers who are going to join, everyone who's going to be fighting this weekend. And so I'm excited to talk to them. So that's coming at 1:30. But then when we come back from this break, it was short-lived. But for a couple games, you could get a beer in the 8th inning at a Brewers game, but no more. But then we'll also talk about where does the AmFam Field stand as far as how expensive getting a beer there is compared to other ballparks. We'll talk about it when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Images. We all have them, but what do we do with them? Why not let Mike Crivello's Camera and Imaging Center turn them into 4x6-inch prints for your brag book? Or big, gorgeous, color-corrected luster, canvas, or metal enlargements for your wall. You may have images, but they're not a picture till they're printed.
Mike Crivello's world is a wonderful world of camera.
Mike Crivello's on Blue Mound Road in Brookfield.
Attention all DIYers! When you're looking for the best products and supplies to take your landscaping to the next level, look no further than Choice Landscaping. For 30 years, Choice Landscaping and Garden Center continues to deliver professional and personal service within a 10-mile radius of Cudahy, but welcomes customers from all over. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, his Garden Center is open year-round to cover all your needs. So don't wait. For more info, visit choicelandscaping.com. Choice Landscaping. Cover all your needs.
You are listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Thank you. Did you know we are always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app too? And if you miss a show or game, find it wherever you get your podcasts or on our website, civicmedia.us.
Weather brought to you by Taqueria Miyagi, Waukesha's authentic Mexican food truck, which is now open and ready to serve you. Find us at 1610 Lincoln Avenue in the BP gas station parking lot or call us at 262-278-6590.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Temperatures reach up to 75 this afternoon under mainly clear skies. Winds out of the southeast 5 to 10 miles an hour. Mainly clear tonight. Lows dip down to about 51. High temperatures reach up to 77 tomorrow. Mainly sunny. Upper 60s Friday and Saturday with scattered showers possible both days. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 70 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk from Butler to Wind Lake. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Well, it was a good run while it lasted. If you really needed that last beer in the 8th inning, you got it for like a month.
And now it's over.
The Milwaukee Brewers revert to ending alcohol sales in the 7th inning, which it sounds like not that many people were really buying it in the 8th inning. Which, congratulations, Wisconsin. Way to be responsible and know that you should cut yourself off in the 8th inning and not indulge just because the option is there.
Seriously, though, drinking through 7 innings should be enough.
Right. It should be enough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, so it lasted about a month, but, because at first, I guess it was because they thought that the beer sales were going to be down because the games, I think they're averaging, I read, games are like a half hour faster right now.
Oh.
So that was why they did it at first, because the games were clipping by faster.
So quickly.
And so they thought maybe we'd squeeze a little bit more out. But it turns out not making that much of a difference.
Must have been kind of a dud.
But where would you think? So thinking of Brew City, the Brewers, when you compare AmFam Field to other ballparks, where do you think it would fall as far as how expensive the beer is?
Compared to all the other ballparks.
All except, so this is USA Today looked at ML beer prices by team, and they also looked at hot dogs. So what are the cheapest and most expensive stadiums? And I think they said Chicago, they didn't include the Cubs or the Tampa Bay Rays because
you can't really compare Wrigley to anything.
Well, it's mostly because of who does their food.
Oh.
A company called Levi Restaurants does both Cubs and Tampa Bay food, and they didn't provide pricing information.
Oh, we're not.
And so we're just not going to tell you. And so competitive advantage. Who knows? But they looked at hot dogs and beer. And where do you think? So the beer is they did it by per ounce, and most expensive to cheapest. Where do you think the Milwaukee Brewers are? As how close to the cheapest or how close to the most expensive?
I think they're closer to the most expensive.
They are. They're 4th.
Wow.
So we are behind. The Dodgers are the most expensive at 99 cents per ounce. San Diego Padres are 69%. Oh, so we're basically tied for second with. So we're at the Milwaukee Brewers are 69 cents per ounce, and that's also the Padres, Detroit Tigers, Cincinnati Reds, Chicago White Sox, and the Baltimore Orioles. So we're one of the more expensive places to get a beer. But then where do you think we are for hot dogs?
I'll say we're in the middle.
For hot dogs, we are the 4th cheapest.
Oh, well, there's your bargain.
So there's your bargain. So much better deal getting a hot dog at American Family Field than a beer, apparently. At least comparatively, if you're going to other ballparks.
Right. One would think that considering Brew City, Brewers, our beer would be slightly cheaper.
And especially because I think in general, getting a beer in Milwaukee is slightly, in the city of Milwaukee, you can still find a $3 or $4 beer at a lot of bars. like a can of High Life or like a can of Miller Lite or bottle of High Life and stuff.
We're
Like,
not talking the fancy stuff, but still, you can still get a beer. Yeah, for
Yeah.
under $10.
but yeah, it's $4 for a hot dog. Wow. Is that expensive to you?
That seems, yes.
But I mean, and people complain about the cost. I remember the first time, because like I feel like I lived in San Francisco. San Francisco has always been expensive, but I really lived there when like all the like Facebook and all these companies were going public. And so I remember the comparison of the AT&T Field, which is where the San Francisco Giants play. And I lived there when they won a World Series, which was fun. And the difference between the stadium from when I first moved there to by the time I left, like how many you could get sushi and you could get all like so many fancy food vendors there as far as like what your experience was like. I was like, this feels very different than Wrigley. That is for sure.
Absolutely. But think about, I mean, what if you have 3 kids and you have 2 boys and they want 2 hot dogs apiece?
Yeah.
And a soda and some snackage, and that really adds up quickly, especially if you've got kids.
Oh, totally. Well, it's also like going to the movies now too, where that adds up quickly as soon as unless you sneak your snacks in.
I might know people who do that.
What's your go-to snack?
Popcorn.
But you don't sneak popcorn into the theater though, do you?
I do not. I know someone who does.
Oh. Do we know this person?
You may have met this person.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to give up. I'm not.
You're not a narc.
Popcorn narc.
But because I feel like the point of the like I would sneak my candy in
because that's what's really expensive.
Because that's what's really expensive, and you can get that somewhere else. Versus, I think it's hard to replicate movie popcorn at home. Versus a bag of Skittles is a bag of Skittles.
True.
Trust me, I know.
You've taste tested.
I've taste tested the rainbow
over the course of your lifetime. I feel confident accepting that evaluation.
God, I hope they don't ban them.
There is one of your main food groups. Kid.
All right. Well, when we come back, the Battle of the Badges. I don't know whether or not boxing is your thing. This is a great event going to a really good cause, but it reminds me of a certain firefighter show where there, the animosity between the bravest and the finest. Who's going to come out on top? We're going to talk about it when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Wisconsin's home for rational talk radio.
CBS News Brief. New York Republican Congressman George Santos is expected to appear in a federal courtroom in Long Island soon to be arraigned on fraud charges. He's now in custody, says CBS's Caitlin Huey-Burns.
In March, the House Ethics Committee opened an investigation into Santos's financial disclosure forms and whether he violated federal conflict of interest laws.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas says an existing border security rule will be enforced when a pandemic-era rule expires at midnight.
At that point, we will once again process people at our southern border using our immigration enforcement authorities under Title VIII of the United States Code.
Consumer prices were higher last month than they were a year ago, but Bankrate's Mark Hamrick says there's some good news in the government report.
A modestly better than expected year-over-year 4.9% increase in prices at the retail level, the lowest since April 2021, is most welcomed.
CBS News Brief. I'm Christopher Cruz.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM.
Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. 2023 is the deadliest year for law enforcement officers in Wisconsin in 20 years. St. Croix County Sheriff Scott Knutson was Deputy Katie Lysing's boss. She's the fourth law enforcement officer killed in Wisconsin so far this year.
We need good cops. But we're killing the good cops. And it's frustrating.
Lysing was shot and killed at a traffic stop last Saturday. Milwaukee County leaders are striking out a local buy-in to help maintain American Family Field. The idea was voted down in committee Monday. Republican state lawmakers want Milwaukee and Milwaukee County to pay at least part of the $300 million to keep the stadium maintained. In sports, the Dodgers beat the Brewers last night 6-2. The rubber match of the series is today. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
2020. That's the vision at Holtebeck Eye Center. At Holtebeck Eye Center, they provide the most professional and compassionate care in the industry, from your first call to follow-up after treatment. If you've been dreaming of seeing clearly again, Dr. Holtebeck can restore your vision with expert care and attention to issues like cataracts, glaucoma, and diabetes complications.
Fire. Late at night.
Knockout 911. Fireverse Police. One night. An epic showdown inside the ring. Battle of the Badges. This Saturday, it's Milwaukee's finest versus Milwaukee's bravest. Yes, the police department is taking on the fire department in boxing. And here to talk about the event is firefighter and founder of Ignite the Spirit Milwaukee, Mr. Joe Flick, returning. And we also have Lydia Rivera. Did I say it right? Rivera, thank you. From the Milwaukee Police Department, and Otto Olson, who is the manager, owner of Dropout Fight Club, which is where the event is taking place. So happy to have you guys in the studio.
Thanks for having us in, Kristen.
So I have to start with Joe, just because the first time you were on the show, I asked you what TV show depicts being a firefighter the best, and you said Rescue Me, which I had watched. And if I remember correctly, there is an episode where the firefighters play the fire department. The firefighters play the police department in hockey, and there's more fighting than there is hockey.
Yep.
So it looks like you just cut the corner. And are like, well, let's just fight instead. Let's not even play the game. We'll just start with the punching.
Take the hockey right out of it, which is funny because there's actually a viral clip around right now that has the most recent New York hockey game with no less than 6 boxing matches in it.
I heard.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is the first time this has ever been done in Milwaukee. It's in some of the other bigger cities for the first responder community. And we think it's just going to be amazing.
Well, it's funny because I asked you to come on thinking, I was like, oh, we'll help promote the event. It's already sold out. There's no, I'm lucky I got my ticket already because it's already buzzing and people are going to be there. There's going to be food trucks. There's going to be
I'd say the
booze.
hard part is done, but some of us still have to fight on Saturday.
So Lydia, are you fighting as well?
I am, yes.
Okay. And so are you a trained boxer or is this a new?
No, I've been doing jujitsu for probably 4 years now. In my early 20s, I got into boxing. It was like my first love of combat sports.
Okay.
So it's really nice to go back to the roots of my training and do boxing. I've always wanted to have a fight. I never got to. I thought that would be something I do in my 20s, but here I am in my 30s now having my first fight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So I guess before we get into some of the fun parts of like the matchups and nerves, what is this benefiting? This is obviously not just because of budding animosity towards each other. This is actually going
Which
for a
there
good
is
cause.
none. I mean, we want both teams to win equally, right? I mean, but it's going to be supporting two causes. One is obviously Ignite the Spirit Milwaukee. We support firefighters and their families in times of need. And then the police are fundraising and supporting Milwaukee Police Association's Fallen Hero Fund.
Which is great. And how much money has been raised already? Otto, do you know? Are you the one who's collecting? Is it on your thing that you know the answer?
Yeah, I mean, I know what we've done in ticket sales.
Okay.
And then I can see what these guys did in their own kind of.
Because that's part of it, right?
There's
So
two
each person who's fighting, you can explain
Yep,
it.
there's two elements. So there's the boxers are all running their own peer-to-peer fundraising, getting their friends to chip in and tell them good luck. And then the gym is running the gate, and the gate's going to get split 50-50 between the two charities.
Nice.
And then there's other avenues of trying to just scrape together some more money. Limited poster sales, the T-shirts,
Those are awesome.
Everything's limited. And then we're going to be raffling some tickets off this week too, all
Nice.
week. Yeah, so just like a pair of tickets to the highest bidder, two highest bidders, on the Instagram story page. So
Okay.
there
And
are
that's
still,
a Dropout Fight Club.
Yes,
If you want to
there are
follow
still
Dropout
some
Fight Club.
tickets available.
Okay.
But not many.
Not
so
many.
Officially, 6 pairs left. Yeah.
So how long has Dropout Fight Club been around? Because it's in River West in Milwaukee.
Not even 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, built it during when we were all on lockdown. I was going nuts at home and I missed everybody. So I thought, man, I got to like rebuild a community somehow. So I did. I found an abandoned warehouse, threw a boxing ring in the middle, threw up some bags, and then everyone keeps turning up. It's been incredible.
So are you a boxer by training?
A coach.
Coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you, because you and Joe originally connected.
Yep.
Street fight.
Yeah.
That makes
we saw
sense.
each other in a dark alley and just went after it. And afterwards we hugged it out. And this was an event that I just kind of had on the back burner. Like, if the right opportunity presents itself, it'd be great to have Battle of the Badges boxing in Milwaukee.
We've talked about it for a while, right?
Yep. And when I saw Dropout pop up during COVID, just randomly on social media, and just kind of kept an eye on them, and I loved it. And I mean, the gym, you walk in and it just has something, it's got an air to it that sucks you in. And when I saw that they were hosting their fight nights that they have a couple times a year for their members, I saw the vibe in there and it was just nuts. And I knew that was it. I found him. I found the guy that was going to run it.
All right.
And I just find it so interesting, Otto, that I would never think a boxing ring would be what would bring the community together, because I envision it as being so antagonistic, but you support each other, you train with each other, right?
I think
you have shared tips, and
especially after lockdown, when everyone was like, I just need to hit something. So yeah, we accommodate all kinds of like domestic disputes. We like to settle them like amicably, We got a ring and some padding, which kind of helps, boxing gloves. But no, I think it's just well, first of all, there's no workout like a boxing workout.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they're fit till they try a boxing workout.
Absolutely.
And I think once you get past the intimidation part, it really is community based. It's you turn up, everyone goes through exactly the same workout, so you know how everyone else is feeling, and then everyone stays. Then we do sparring after, and if you don't want to get in the ring, you can always just hang out, have a drink, and watch everyone else kind of like punch each other in the face.
Punch each other?
Yeah. There's never like a nice way to put that.
Nope.
Well, and how does one learn how to take a punch? Because I would cry.
You're assuming that we haven't cried.
I think once you just get it, I think the build up and the anticipation is worse than the actual event happening. So once you get over
getting
it,
punched in the face.
yeah, like, I mean, you have, we have gloves on, you have headgear on, you have a mouth guard. The only thing that really sticks out is your nose. So once you've taken a shot to the face, it's like, okay, that's it. We're good. Obviously some shots hurt a little bit more than others, but once you take that first shot, it's usually like, that's not so bad.
Not so bad.
Yeah.
We are talking about the Battle of the Badges going down on Saturday to and Milwaukee Police Department versus the Milwaukee Fire Department, raising money for a good cause. And we're talking to Joe Flick from the Fire Department, Lydia Riviera from the Milwaukee Police Department, and Otto Osen, who owns the Dropout Fight Club, which is where the event is happening. So let's hear more about how many people are fighting. What are the lineups look like as far as firefighter v police officer?
So we have 10 bouts now.
Yeah.
10.
Well, wait.
How many?
There was supposed to be 11.
Okay.
But then firefighters being firefighters,
we're not good with each other.
What does that mean?
Like, there's a thing called sparring where you fight each other in the ring.
Yeah, and you're
because we
practicing,
didn't want.
yeah.
Because what can't there's two separate camps. So there's a couple of coaches in the police camp. There's a couple of coaches in the fire camp. And those two camps, they can't fight each other because we need that element of surprise on fight night.
Yes.
So they spar against each other. And for some reason, half of the firefighters either got broken noses, broken jaws, and it's their own team. I don't know
So
what's
during
going
sparring,
on. The maniacs.
We carry a lot of stress.
See, so there's guys who are already injured before the big night and can't play anymore.
Yeah, we had to take a whole fight card off of the card because they beat each other up too bad.
All right, so now there's 10.
So we're down to 10.
Which is still a lot.
It's still a lot. So how many rounds are there going to be per fight?
So they're 2-minute rounds. So with
Okay.
3 2-minute rounds.
3 2-minute rounds, all right.
Unless your name is Joe, and then you have to fight 4 2-minute rounds because that's the headliner. And it just so happens they're both called Joe. So I think it's like the fight for your namesake. Whoever loses will therefore be known as the other Joe, I think.
Actually going to go right to the courthouse and have to change your name afterwards.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're not going to get to keep the name. There can only be one.
That's
Joseph.
good stakes.
Yeah.
Joseph, yeah.
I feel like that's a movie.
So that's headliner. Lydia, who are you fighting?
I'll be the third from last fight, I believe. I am fighting one of the firefighters who's maybe 10 years younger than me.
Great.
But that's okay. I got experience, I'd like to think.
Lydia, I'm curious. I took a self-defense class many, many years ago, and that was the first time as a woman that I had ever been encouraged to really hit something, and it felt really, really good.
It feels amazing.
But women aren't normally encouraged to take out their anger and hostility that way. It's like, go punch something.
Right.
And it was revelatory for me.
Yeah, I think that's changing. Also in jiu-jitsu, for example, too, it's like women don't usually have that experience growing up with wrestling or like football where you're in close proximity to people. So it's really important to get that feeling of that and being close to somebody and possibly having to defend for yourself, you know.
And so how is the training for this? Obviously, it's been a lot shorter. But how does this compare to your actual training for your actual jobs?
This is pretty similar to going into a burning building.
it?
I'll be honest.
Okay.
Like, I track my heart rate, and after the training session, I'll look, and it is right up there with what my heart rate's at when I go to a house fire. It's pretty amazing. And I've got somewhat of a extensive athletic history throughout my life.
Yeah.
This has been the hardest athletic venture I've ever taken on. Like, the amount of learning that has had to happen in the time frame that we've done it in has been humbling, to say the least.
That's saying something.
Yeah.
That is saying something. Same for you, Lydia?
Yeah, I would agree. It's terrifying. I think it's stepping in front of people in the ring is hard enough itself, but going in there and showing off the skills that you've learned in a short amount of time in front of your coworkers is a whole different
That's what I was going to
animal.
ask. Is it scarier, the prospect?
I'm
of
not
getting hit
afraid
in
to
the
admit I'm
face?
terrified. Yeah.
Or is it the public display of it and like having to show up to work
I'd
on Monday and be
rather
like,
get
they're like,
punched in the face.
hey, they got knocked out.
Monday. I
It's
work
going to
Sunday
happen.
morning.
Sunday morning. Yeah.
I work the next
firehouse
day.
right away.
I work the next day, and I know people are gonna have lots of questions and comments about the event, but
That's
it'll be
something
fun.
that I really love about this, though, is like first off, how inclusive it is when you see the different membership that's at the gym training alongside of us for most of our sessions.
Mhm.
But the accessibility of this as well, like any one of our coworkers can come to this event Saturday night and fall in love with it and be like, I'm doing that next year. And they can start training and they can get ready and they can be a part of it. No matter how much you love the hockey game, there's a really strong possibility you're not playing hockey next year. Like, you don't just pick that up and get after it.
That's true. Not everyone just knows how to be on skates. Versus,
Right.
do you feel like do you feel like you could take even the most out of shape person and get them at least ready for 3 rounds of boxing if you had how much time?
Yeah, I've done it.
Okay.
Right, Joe?
Every one of us.
Well, you guys are all in pretty good shape to
No, I'm
start
I'm
with.
kidding.
The
I'm
muscles
kidding.
come with the t-shirt.
I'm kidding. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's all different kinds of weight classes. If you can keep your hands up and throw some punches, and you're burning calories, and you're not sat at home eating Cheetos, not
Well,
that that's a bad thing.
What about Skittles?
Yeah, sure. It's a balance, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, everybody starts somewhere, right?
Everybody starts somewhere. So I guess let's go over the details again. So Saturday night, dropout boxing ring, River West. Where can people buy tickets?
They can't.
Well, where can so you said there's the six pair, the auction.
Oh yes,
the highest bidder.
Yeah, on Dropout Fight Club Instagram story every day.
Okay.
From midnight to 9 p.m. The highest bidder come 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Gets 2 tickets, and
Okay.
the second highest bidder gets 2 tickets.
Okay. So that's one angle. Otherwise, you can still donate, right? If you can't make it to the event because it's sold out, or you don't want to be the highest bidder,
Right.
where can people still donate, or if they want to sponsor? Because all of you are raising money individually for your ref fights, right?
Yep. If you want to support the event and make sure that we put on a good show, I promise you throw $100 on my fundraising page, I'll fight a little bit harder for you.
There you go.
But you can find both the Red Corner and the Blue Corner's fundraising pages at itsmke.org.
Are both your chiefs going to be there? No
Our
idea.
chief is on the guest list. If he's listening, I hope he comes, but I understand if he doesn't.
All right. Well, anything else before we let you guys go that people should know about the event or nerves or?
I hope both teams win. This is going to be
So there
great.
is no winner.
I was going to say, is it just?
There's never been any of the fight nights that we put on. So the very first fight night was all women.
Okay.
We donated all that money to a women's shelter. Both hands are raised at the end of the night. It's a celebration of the community. It's a celebration of what these guys all went through for the last 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Everyone come together, raise some money, and then, I'm sure the crowd will have their own opinion of who won.
Yeah.
But both hands are raised.
They'll
at the
be
end
the
of the
people's
night.
favorite.
Yeah, the
All right,
people's champion.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to go. I will report back on Monday how it went. But
kids, be careful.
Yeah. Save those pretty faces. Make sure your headgear's on right. All right. Well, we'll take one more break and then come up and wrap up the show. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
with highs in the upper 60s. Scattered showers possible both days. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 70 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Never know how much I love you.
Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. Who would you most like to box? If you knew you weren't going to get hurt, really. But like, as far as a matchup of someone in your life that you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I would box that person. Do you have someone in mind? Is there anyone from your past that you'd love to just knock out?
Now that you put it that way. The Antichrist jumps to mind.
Okay.
Ex-boyfriend.
Ex-boyfriend.
Yes, long time ago.
I don't know if there's anyone that I'm such a nonviolent person. I think there's times in my life that if he wasn't, 6 inches taller than me and 70 pounds heavier than me, my brother.
That makes sense.
I think he's the only person in my life I've ever actually hit in the face.
Wow.
Siblings. That's what you were saying as far as, girls growing up and not being told that we can hit things. I think there might be an exception. Well, you had older brothers, though. Did you not fight with your older brothers?
Not physically.
Oh, man, I got the crap beat out of me.
No. That didn't happen.
You were protected? Or were you just that much younger that they were like...
I was the youngest. It's like, that's no fight. They could push me over and it's over.
I was both physically and psychologically terrorized by my brother.
Oh.
Which is fine. I'm tougher today for it. But I think there was years in there because we're 4.5 years apart. And so, on trips and stuff, he had to put up with me. But there was a time in there where his goal was to see how long it would take him to make me cry.
Oh, fun.
And just either making fun of me or teasing me.
What is that dynamic? What is that torture dynamic between siblings? I don't get it.
Boredom, maybe?
I don't know.
Because it's mostly when we were just, I remember most profoundly when we were on like family vacations. And so he had nothing else to do.
But
bug me. And it was funny because I remember years later, because now we're really close. And we've gone on many vacations together as friends and stuff. We were on a trip together and we were all in a Uber XL driving home from the bars or getting dropped off. And there was some random woman that we had met that was coming back to the next place that we were going. And all the guys in the car that were our friends were teasing her about something. They were teasing her about I can't remember exactly what it was. They were teasing her and she kept getting more and more defensive and doubling down on what she was trying to say or what she was doing. And I was like, I finally just yelled from the back of the car. I was like, do you not have brothers? Do you not know that if you just let it go, they will get bored and stop?
When they're not getting the reaction they're shooting for, they'll give it up, right?
They will give it up. And so my brother obviously in the car laughed pretty hard at that one because it's like the lesson of you try to teach your kids. I imagine when you have kids that they're fighting with each other, if you just ignore him, he will stop. But we're not always good at that as adults either, especially as you tweet back at someone who's a jerk on Twitter.
That's true. But I would like to think that adults don't do it just for enjoyment.
Oh, I know some.
Tweak each other like that. I don't get that.
You've never met anyone who just is like, I just want to get a rise out of this person?
I would tend to just avoid them if they annoy me that much.
You haven't worked with a person like that?
Then I really avoid them, if at all possible. And I just want to say, you are going to be a much better audience member at this fight on Saturday because now that we've had Joe in a couple times and even Lydia, who are going to be boxing on Saturday, I will get upset on their behalf. I want to be in the audience going no, that's my Joe.
That's my Joey.
Don't hit him. That's
Mr. Pretty Face. What did Chief Lipsky call him? The pretty one?
The pretty one.
The pretty one. And that's what I actually had asked my mom. She was thinking about maybe coming down since Sunday is Mother's Day. And it's like, well, we had already bought tickets for this event Saturday night. It's a boxing event. She goes, oh no, I'm definitely not going to that.
Your mother and I could hang out.
But there's another establishment in Milwaukee that does a boxing night where it's, amateur or semi-pro young boxers in Milwaukee. And they're the ones who are boxing, and all the people who attend are, richer, older, white people for the most part. And it's a very uncomfortable, like I've never been to one, but I've seen pictures of them, and it's a very uncomfortable scene as far as like the spectator, the voyeuristic part of it, of just like watching these young kids like beat each other up. This feels a little bit better as far as like, all right, this is for charity. It's cops, it's firefighters, it's all like, I don't think anyone's really gonna like fight to knock someone out versus
They broke noses in
they did break
training.
noses. They did break noses. That's true.
Oops.
Well, I'll report back of how violent it gets.
Please
but
do.
3 rounds seems doable.
Well, just
3 2-minute rounds, that's doable.
Be prepared to throw yourself in front of Lydia if she needs help.
Okay, if I need to protect
Jump
her,
in
I
the
will.
middle of the ring
I
and
will.
Deflect.
All right. Well, what do we have coming up tomorrow? As far as I'm trying
We
to,
will have some Brewers tickets.
we will have Brewers tickets tomorrow.
Yes.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Yes.
So we will do a give out. We have to come up with a good trivia question. I feel like I had a good trivia question last time. As far as I wonder if anyone's bid on the racing sausages yet.
Oh, those costumes.
Those costumes. I feel like that'd be a good item for the public museum to have. Maybe.
I like that idea.
Who else could? Maybe the Milwaukee Historical Society. Who else would be? What would be a good?
Those are 2 really good suggestions.
Right? As far
Yeah.
as like who maybe has the money to throw down, like would preserve them instead of someone who's like, I'm gonna wear these.
Better would be someone would buy them and then donate them to these nonprofit organizations.
That is true. That is
that
true.
would be a pretty great thing.
But then tomorrow we have our second edition of what we are going to call public service announcement.
Yes. I saw my doctor on Monday and I told her a couple of the options and she was all over public service announcement.
My Debbie Bry also public service announcement. So that is our women's health segment with Dr. Kristen Lyerly. And
if you have questions, by the way, send them in.
Yes, send them in. AsGoesWisconsin at civicmedia.us if you have any women's health questions. Tomorrow, I know that we're going to tackle because there was big news on changing the age when you should start getting mammograms. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about PCOS. And then we're going to talk about whatever questions you guys send us. So AsGoesWisconsin at civicmedia.us. We're also going to have Phil Rocco back on the show to talk about the differences between the shared revenue options between Evers and the legislature. J.R. Radcliffe's going to be back to talk about sports. And it's our monthly Beer Baron with Chris Drosner.
Excellent.
So we got a full show tomorrow. But as for today, thank you for calling. Thank you for listening. Thank you for just being a part of the show. We will be back tomorrow at 11. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
With his kisses, fever when he holds me tight.